Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. I'm coming in full steam today. It is Tuesday. It is July the 14th. I appreciate you guys being along for the ride. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I think we'll have fun. We might as well have fun. Big news. The war is back on. We were kind of thinking about doing the war anyway in Iran. And although we've already won it, and I'm freaking tired of winning. That's how many times we've won it. I guess we're going to do it again. We're just going to do kind of like the kids that were playing the stickball in the street and cars come in. And so it was like, game off. We got a MOU. We're going to have to go to, we're not going to go. Actually, we're going to go sign in France. We're going to do it in Switzerland, but we're not going to do it in France. Just sign this paper. And then we're like, game on. Let's go again. Let's go, you crazy bastards. Let's open the Strait or whatever. And we were going to let you charge tolls, but now we're going to charge tolls and we're going to bomb you. So best case scenario, all the good things are happening all at one time. In honor of Lindsey Graham's deceased war boner, the war is resuming. The best news is that we've already won. So there's no military for us to fight. I don't even know what we're just bombing things. We're just winning. So many wins all at once. It's very exciting. So, guys, that's pretty good. The other news that's kind of fun is that the Democrats have admitted that the Save America Act, which would do voter ID and some other sort of election security measures, if that were to happen, then there would never be another Democrat win and Republicans would sweep the everything. And so since the Republicans are in charge right now and they have the majorities, they're gonna not do that. So we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have a good time. Also, Lindsey Graham's sister is gonna be a senator for no particular reason. She's just a lady. She's just a lady who is the sister of the guy. So why the heck not? Actually, when director Kash Patel is sick, they're gonna just let the girl who is his friend take over the FBI too. She'll just be the acting director because guys, these are just ceremonial positions as we guide the ship down into the, into the abyss. We're just slowly drifting with no power into the darkness. What else do we got for you? Shootings. You can't run over ICE agents. They will shoot you. Even if you're not the guy that they were looking for and you try to run them over, they will shoot you. So I got a couple of shootings. Good news, maybe good news is that people they're kind of flocked out. You know, there's this camera system and AI, and it's looking into people, and it's getting the wrong people, it's getting the right people. People are worried about their privacy and their security. So there's a massive uptick in the sale of Sawzall type saber saws. I don't know if you guys have one, but my saber saw is very effective. I cut pallets and stuff like that. People are getting after it with the Sawzalls. And unfortunately, there's all these maps of where the flock cameras are, and people are saying, get the fuck out of here. And there are memes about it, and there are cuttings about it. So we'll talk about some stories about getting the wrong guy. Obviously, we talked yesterday about multiple police departments either turning away from them or finding that there are officers that are using them to track people they are interested in, potential lovers, and so on. Yeah, it's game on. And we'll see. I've probably got some other fun stuff in there as well. Maybe a little rant about travel for those of you who have traveled recently. I had an experience that I've yet to share, so I will share that. All right, before we get into all those things, speaking of travel, one of the things that I took with me when I was on my trip was multiple silent Faraday backpacks and Faraday bags. Why would that be? Maybe because my phone is a tracking system, and I have this general instinct that the FBI or other intelligence agencies might look into me. You may not have that sort of thing, but maybe you're worried about other government agencies or big tech or corporate data brokers or cyber criminals or general scumbags who are hanging out in Washington, D.C. that are fighting for a piece of your digital footprint they're not asking. They just walk by, they scan you, and you're just putting out all the stuff. You got Bluetooth, and you got RFID, and you got GPS, and you got cellular, and you got Wi-Fi, and you got near-field communications if they get real close by to your phone, and they just want to swipe you. If you want to get rid of all the signals, that means there's no tracking, there's no remote access to your phone or your information or your apps. There's no breadcrumbs tracking where you've been. These things may be useful to you. They're useful to me. Their backpack that I show you guys, the E3 Everyday Faraday backpack, it is my favorite backpack. I took it with me and I loaded that sucker down. It was probably over the weight limit for the travel, like in the 50-pound range. It was full of batteries and communications devices and tablets and lighting and stuff like that. I had some cameras in there. I had my laptop to run the podcast, all those things. They all fit in there. Check out slnt.com/KYLE. You'll save 15% on their outstanding stuff. Use promo code Kyle when you check out. Get yourself a Silent Faraday sleeve. I even saw George Hill brought one in. We were swapping or sharing a hotel room, one of those little double queen numbers. And on his side of the room, there was a Silent Faraday pouch, just like this one that I keep on my desk. If you guys don't have one of these things and you're thinking about it, I will tell you this: the more you spend on their website, kind of like the better product you get. The sleeves are outstanding. They do a great job. They're not cheap, but I find that you get multiple sleeves and a really awesome backpack with the backpack stuff. Maybe you want to look into the everyday concealed carry pouch as well. I've got one of those. I'm a big fan because you can keep your phone off grid and your pistol with you and some medical or whatever it is, or maybe a camera system so you can take pictures of your kids when you're out on a hike. Anyway, check out Silent. They're awesome. They make great stuff. They make great products. And now they're doing them in multicam black, as you saw on the screen. And they're out there. All right, so we're going to get into today's program. I'm obviously pretty amped up. Let's get going, starting right now. Okay, so let's get started with maybe the front page of the New York Times letting us know that the war has reignited and we are back fighting. We don't know who we are fighting. Could be anyone because we've already killed all the people that are the bad guys. They have no military, they have no army, they have no navy. We don't even know it, but we are bombing the living hell out of them. Pretty interesting. A couple of major headlines that show up here on the New York Times main page, and we're going to get into most of these stories. U.S. and Iran reignite war over the Strait of Hormuz. The country slid back into an open war over the waterway as the United States plans to reinstate the blockade in Iranian ports. Tehran said that it had attacked military tankers and fired at U.S. military sites. The president of the United States said that we won again. We keep on winning. That's pretty exciting. And oil is now over $85 a barrel. Yesterday, we either reported that it was like 72, and I think the global price was $76 or $77 a barrel. So we're back up. We're about a 10% increase overnight. Super exciting. And then we're going to find out. Let's scroll down just a little bit here. It says what to know about Donald Trump's plan to charge a toll in the Strait. Let's go to the man's words itself. Let's go to the way that he rules, which is via tweet / Truth Social post. I find that very frustrating, by the way. Truth Social is such a garbage app and a garbage way to get information, but it is the only way you can get Donald Trump's raw feed. It's like a look into a mind that is possibly failing. All right. He's now decided to get more. He's investing in brevity. I don't know what's going on here. It used to be the Strait of Hormuz. Now it's the Hormuz Strait. It's open, and it'll remain open. I don't know why open is in all caps, but it's in all caps in case you can't see it. If you're listening, it's in all caps, with or without Iran. We are reinstating the Iranian blockade, and that is all. Hold on, let me say this again. We are reinstating the Iranian blockade. What is he doing? It's called the Iranian blockade. The Iranian blockade is in all caps, but there's a lowercase the before it. So we have a double article here for no particular reason. What is happening? I didn't catch that when I first ran through it. You wouldn't necessarily think that a president would double up on the word the, but he did. Comma. So named because it is only stopping Iranian ships or customers from entering or leaving. It's a nasty run-on sentence there, full of such a mess. Come on, bro. What are we doing here? It was 7:15 in the morning. There's just no excuse for this. You should be firing on all cylinders. All other countries will have fair and open use of the Strait. The USA, which now has periods in between them. It's the... The way this is written is so crazy. If you read this, and you were like, what's wrong with this dude? You'd be like, all the things are wrong with him. He shouldn't be in charge of typing this stuff up. Just doing the Chuck Grassley bony knuckle tweet at this point. All right, the USA will be, from this point forward, known as, quote, the guardian of the Hormuz Strait, end quote. But as such, and as a matter of fairness is in all caps, we will be reimbursed. We'll be reimbursed at the rate of 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to the job of providing safety and security for this very volatile section of the world. The world is capitalized. I don't know why you capitalized for. This guy is he's so out of it. Why does he do this stuff? I need a shirt that says Guardians of the Hormuz Strait. Not the Strait of Hormuz. That would actually sound kind of cool. Guardians of the Strait of Hormuz. No, it's Guardians of the Hormuz Strait. The process and formation will begin immediately. Thank you for attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Yeah, so Trump is completely out to lunch at this point. And I don't say that lightly. That is, reading some of this stuff is some of the weirdest things that you'll ever read. It's completely nuts. I have a 36-second clip here of him announcing victory one more time. So let's go ahead and do that. It seems like a thing we should do. Donald Trump telling you what's going on.
So we have them in a position that they don't have any military. There's not a thing they can do about it. All they have is fake news, because they have the fake news, would rather see us lose the war than win the war, which is really treasonous, in a certain way. So we're doing another very major attack tonight. They want to make a deal. They came back. We made a deal 2 days ago, and they want to make a deal. They've been negotiating for 47 years, but nobody's ever hit them militarily. We're hitting them very hard. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
If you understood what that was, will you please put a translation from Trump to whatever the hell that guy just said in English? We're defeating them militarily because their military is gone. The war is over, but we're restarting the war. We've been negotiating for 47 years, but nobody has ever done military strikes. And so therefore now we're having real negotiations. At what point does obviously the press corps, you can hear in there, they're like, hey man, that sounds like a bunch of bullshit. Why are you saying crazy nonsense? Can we get anything that makes sense from you? Do you know where you are? Is the 47-year negotiation in the room with you right now? Here's NPR. Let's go to a complete nonsensical source and find out that they have a better take on it from the hard left. The U.S. is set to reinstate a blockade over the Strait of Hormuz, a.k.a. known as the Hormuz Strait. The United States military announced that it will begin the blockade of Iranian ships over the Strait of Hormuz on Tuesday, as Iran vowed to assert its own control over the critical international waterway. How they're going to do that, since they have no military, is unknown. But they will be attempting to assert their own critical capabilities. Very confusing for those of us who are paying attention and believe the president no matter what he says. It's got to be really weird to be a MAGA person today. Like, you know, not a person who supports the MAGA agenda. I think that's actually pretty easy to do. But if you're like a person who just whatever Donald Trump says equals my opinion, it must be kind of schizophrenic. Okay. CENTCOM said the blockade would begin, called Operation Guardians of the Hormuz Strait. I made that part up, but it sounds good, doesn't it? At 4 o'clock Eastern time today. So we got a few more hours before whatever this is kicks off. The U.S. military last worked to blockade maritime traffic from April 13th to June 18th. And then they were like, hey, isn't it Donald Trump's birthday? He really wants to have a cool party. Let's pretend like we're going to have peace for a little bit. Let's do that. And Iran's like, yeah, we're on board.
My bing bong ain't out. I'm chilling. Bing bong's not out. I'm good.
So the Iranian bing bong was put away, and then it was just fine. Everything was going to be great. The announcement came after intensified strikes over the weekend, testing the shaky ceasefire, which, remember, it's not a normal ceasefire. It's a kinetic ceasefire. So when they say that they're not shooting, what they mean is they're not shooting as much. And honestly, that's the most sane and sober take, is that basically we're being lied to on a regular basis. The words don't mean what they were. If you guys are looking like, hey, what does it look like when we re-intensify and we go after, starting up the non-kinetic kinetic war, it looks like this. That is a really, really, really big fireball. And now you're going to hear Iranian people probably a little bit upset. It sounds terrifying. You can hear the planes coming in. They're doing the airstrikes, massive explosions. This is us in the middle of a ceasefire. Like, what the actual hell are we looking at here? That's a ceasefire. That's a kinetic ceasefire with maybe 250-foot tall flames coming out of the bombs being dropped. Just wild. It's just a wild time to see this stuff. In any case, on Monday, we launched another wave of strikes. Those were some of them you just saw on the screen, and you got to hear a little bit in the audio. I don't think our microphones are meant to pick that stuff up. The U.S. military said it struck Iranian missile defense systems, drone sites, and other defense systems, even though, from what we're told from the president right there, that we don't actually have a military to fight, so I don't know what we're doing. And we are degrading Iran's ability to attack commercial shipping. It's unclear what this capability to attack commercial shipping would be. And then, as I scroll down further, it seems like maybe it makes more sense when you realize that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which Donald Trump just said was gone, is not gone. And they have 2 non-compliant supertankers in the Strait of Hormuz that they struck. According to statements from the Iranian state media, they launched missiles and drones from their non-existent military against United States military infrastructure in Bahrain, which hosts the Navy's 5th Fleet, and U.S. military outposts in Jordan. Again, they are using their non-military to attack our actual military, which is actually there. This is freaking crazy. United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry said 2 of its tankers were targeted by Iranian cruise missiles, which are being launched by not their military, as they have no military, as Donald Trump just told us, while transiting the shipping lane of the Strait of Hormuz, a.k.a. the Hormuz Strait, in Omani waters, so not even territorial waters of Iran. It killed 1 person. Bahrain's authorities reported that the sirens were sounded and urged citizens to head to safe places, probably because this was going on. Seriously. Truly shocking. And I don't know what else you do with that. All right. I don't have a lot of clarity on what the answer is here, but I do have friends that are pretty bright. So I'm going to play you a clip that George Hill sort of sua sponte, like jumped on Twitter and felt like he had to give some information out to people. And I actually like it when he does that. Having just spent most of the last week with George Hill, I appreciate the duality that is my friend George. One of the things he does is he's incredibly sarcastic and he's very dry. So if you listen to this show, that's probably up your alley. In fact, he's so dry that even people like me don't always know what sort of dry thing he's dropping on me. If it's in text form, it's almost indecipherable. The second version of him is incredibly poignant and I think very sober analysis. And so I'm going to give you some of that, sort of the 2 options we have, both of which come with some baggage. So I think it's worth looking into that. Before we get into the video of it, I just wanted to tell you what the consequence was of those strikes against their not military. Oil jumps. This is coming from Axios as of this morning. Oil jumps as the Trump administration claims the new Hormuz blockade on Iran, it surged 9%. So they're saying to roughly $83. And I think as of this morning, it was saying about $85 in the New York Times. So my 10% estimate was about on point in a day. And this all becomes part of the issue of people wondering, what's the future price of oil going to be? So these are all speculations. This is what drives this thing. Higher oil prices typically feed into higher gasoline prices at the pump. They're charging you for what it'll take to refine future capabilities and future stores, and they charge you that today. So for those of us that were cheering on, and I was with them, I was like, hey, I'll give credit when the credit is due. I will tell you when I feel good about the Trump administration getting closer back to the original costs. I will tell you that also it was in the $2.15 to $17 per gallon range in Texas, America, here in the center of Central Texas, just north of Austin. That's kind of what we were paying in February. It spiked up as high as close to $4 a gallon. My diesel prices went from being about $3-ish, $2.98 to about $3.10. That was my diesel prices in February. And I have a pretty good memory for numbers just because I'm nerdy like that. And I drive around and I stare at them and I think, oh, what if I save a nickel per gallon? Like it matters. But, we're all like that, right? We all want to see a lower number. It went up to $5.50 plus a gallon. It got back underneath $4 a gallon in the last couple of days, and we're back up over $4 a gallon again. So I don't know where it's going to go. Not amazing stuff to see this. All right, let's do some sort of sober analysis from my friend George Hill, who decided for some reason to film a video in his new home in a tank top. Do not be distracted by the beautiful shoulders. Listen to the man. Let's see what he has to say here.
I wanted to get this out there quick. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of how we do this and how we do that regarding Iran. Here's the bottom line. It's a bimodal choice. We only have two choices here. Either take a knee and go home and live with the consequences for an indefinite, unforeseeable time, or finish the job a la William Tecumseh Sherman and rain holy hell down on the Iranians and end it once and for all. There are consequences with both. So it's a bimodal choice. We can debate the hows and the whys and the consequences later on. But what needs to happen is it needs to go in front of Congress, in front of the people, with just those two choices. Go home, take a knee, and live with the consequences, or total all-out war and live with the consequences there. But listen up, MAGA, and you thick-skulled people. You don't get to choose on which parts of the Constitution you like or you don't like. If we're going to war, unless you want to change the constitutions between then and now, you need to put this in front of Congress, put this in front of the American people, and let them decide. And then live with the consequences, whatever they may be. But this hand-wringing over this, that, and people singing Bomb Iran and whatever doesn't move the needle on a decision-making process at all. That's all I got for now.
Follow George for some of this stuff if you want. I didn't know he was starting to make videos in the stand-up space, but I do really appreciate him doing that. I may even send him a special camera just to do that if he's so inclined. Maybe I'll just send him a little tripod. That's it. It's at Senior Chief EXW. He's right, I think, that you either have to get in or get out. You either have to do the war thing or you have to pretend like we've already won and step away and take Donald Trump at his word with all the crazy capitalizations. Either you get into it or you don't halfway war. And it would be nice if we actually had somebody that was interested in doing what the Constitution says. The sad thing is that I don't think our Constitution functions anymore. And that's pretty obvious because the last time we declared war was in World War II. So we haven't had an actual war, which is why I think we had that video. I played it maybe a couple months back where it was like, we play the game, is this war? And the answer is all the different sort of military exploration, and it was a long-term engagement, and it was a peacekeeping operation, all the other euphemisms we have for war. And none of them are actually war. In theory, nothing for nothing, Donald Trump ran on a promise, number 7, to, quote, defend our Constitution, Bill of Rights, fundamental freedoms. In theory, by defending the Constitution, you would actually defend the things that our Constitution says, which is that Congress is the one who can offer a declaration of war. George is not, he's not unaware of the way that things have worked previously. And he got into the military in the 80s. So saw fighting in the Philippines, not a war. Saw fighting, saw the Desert Storm stuff as he was getting out, not a war. Came back in after 9/11, not a war. Those of us who are paying attention understand that this is not something that has been done, but either you believe in principle or you don't. And it would be nice if we had someone say, when I said defend the Constitution, I meant let's do the things in the Constitution. The Constitution is also broken right now. We broke it as a society, not you and not me. It's not nobody's fault. One of the interesting things about being at this Freedom Fest bit that I was at, and that's what it was called, Freedom Fest, which is essentially a libertarian gathering of people coming up with theoretical ideas that won't work in reality because they ignore some critical feature of reality. There's almost nothing but boomers there. Boomers. You know your age bracket. George Hill's a boomer, technically, although he told me he's a Jones something or other, mid-generation. The fact of the matter is that even the oldest people, even the Chuck Grassleys of the world, were not even alive when our Constitution was broken. So if we're being fair about it, it is a generational problem, but it's just not a generation that's currently here. So I don't want people to get hung up on, this generation did that, and this generation did that. Yes, certain generations clearly benefited when things were moving in the right direction or hadn't been as far degraded. And so they had a better experience of it because the more the American system broke, the worse things got for people. So the youngest people are getting the worst of the stick. But the people who actually created this problem, they had to be of voting age at the very minimum, and they would have probably had to have been at the decision age, a majority, in 1913. So these people were born in the 1880s, kind of best case scenario. And if you know anybody that's been around since the 1880s, like, let me know. That sounds like it would be a record. But the odds are is that nobody, as far as I can tell, who was involved in the decision-making processes, who pushed some of these horrible policies, were ever alive when this stuff happened. And now we've just dealt with the inevitable consequences of it. And just so I kind of sum up where my position stands, I think that in 1913, with the Federal Reserve, which screwed up our money, we're going to talk about Scott Bessent in a second in our Treasury, so that's kind of interesting. The second piece of it was the 16th Amendment, which allowed the federal government to take priority over the states. That was kind of the finalization of what happened in the war between the states / the Civil War. I'll just say it both ways for people who live in the South and say it that way. There was a change. There was an assertion that the federal government was the supreme government. And previously, prior to the Civil War, people felt like they were citizens of their state and that the federal government couldn't actually say, yeah, we might be in charge, but we can't do anything about it. They showed that they could do something about it in 1861 to 1865. And between then and 1913, there was a steady growth of power out of the federal government to the point where they got the income tax. And once the federal government had the first right of refusal, it's like prima nocta, which, by the way, was kind of like a phenomenon that probably didn't exist. This is the idea that the king got his first night with your bride. This is probably not a real thing, but it's a legendary thing. The federal government gets actual prima nocta with your paycheck, does it not? It reaches into your pocket and it tells you that there will be withholdings. And if you don't pay them in advance, if you don't pay them the right amount of money, then you'll owe them plus interest. So people who, don't budget well, people who live on a W-2, that money comes out of your pocket first, and the federal government funds itself first. And that never happened before 1913. And then the last thing is we broke the only thing that was meant to be a check, the last check on sort of democratic urges of the people. And that was that the United States Senate was meant to represent the state houses and the interests of the states and not the people. And so you weren't supposed to have Ted Cruz, the representative of Texas, Tel Aviv. You were meant to have somebody who represented Austin, Texas, the state house, as a Texan. And it would be whatever the concentrated sort of decision-making of the state legislatures would come out into a representative that they sent to Washington who looked out for state interests at a aggregate level. So there was a filtering. It was the distilling. It's like all the people put all their representatives in. When you got to that, you got another majority, whatever that majority was, sent their representative off to D.C. And that doesn't happen anymore. So here we are with a broken system. And you got George saying things like, we should do things that are constitutional. You shouldn't be able to pick and choose. Unfortunately, we've been doing pick and choose for quite a long time now. We've also chosen to believe that our executive somehow is supposed to be an elected king that also turns over the reins every couple of years. And it's tough to have those things be in tandem with the way our system was created. So it is broken. All that being said. All right. I'll give you one last little story here. This is coming from NBC News, and they're basically pointing out the two things that Trump wants to do. And I read you his own words, so you don't have to guess what he said. But he's turned back to the blockade and to the tolls as the United States and Iran are going to start the intensifying strikes once again to weaken Tehran's resolve over the critical waterway. What I don't see anybody saying is there's basically two ways to get about this. You either have it the way that George says, that we take a knee, we claim whatever it is we got, and that's the end of it. We show them. We come back and beat our chests. It was a military expedition, and we've explored all that we want to explore. Or you do the total war thing where you really commit to it. The sad thing is, and maybe the frustrating thing for some of us who were paying attention at the beginning, number 8 under the core promises to the American people, this is Agenda 47, this is Donald Trump's platform, but it's also the Republicans' platform, was that they were going to restore peace in Europe and the Middle East. And I'm not sure that you would do that by picking a fight with Iran, whose military supposedly is gone and destroyed, and yet somehow, apparently it's also still there, because we're still doing a fight with it. We're fighting somebody, we're bombing something. It'd be nice if we were able to talk about what that was. It'd be nice if we had a president that acknowledged things. Wouldn't it be nice if a guy didn't have to self-hype all the time and he could just tell you, like, hey, by the way, this was not a great decision. We went in and we did some things that were not my favorite. We expected a different outcome. no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And so we're going to withdraw here and we're going to take what we've got. And, we're going to try to drop oil prices so that we don't get completely obliterated, that the American people don't just find themselves in a financially wrecked position, which is kind of what he ran on, the domestic agenda. By the way, number 3, reduce inflation, make America affordable again. Also not getting done. So all that being said, so be it. That's where we're at. For those of you that are live in the chat right now, I really appreciate all of you guys coming here in the mornings. It's been fun to have you back. It's fun to be back on my normal time slot. It's weird to be in Las Vegas. We'll do a little bit of travel humor in a second here. Make sure you guys are liking the videos and putting the thumbs up on the stream, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Rumble. If you're listening after the fact and you're listening on Spotify or iHeartRadio or Apple, you may hear an ad that I kick in right here. And then also leave us a comment. On Spotify, you can leave a comment every time. There's some really funny comments in there. People are sharing information about deflocking and, automated license plate reader websites. If you guys want to make routes that avoid these kind of things, people are sharing about the information. Also, some of you guys have really funny jokes that come in after the fact. So if you're not seeing that, Spotify's a good place for it. You can leave us a 5-star review over on Apple. That's cool too. Appreciate that. If you're listening on iHeart, I've got to go look into what iHeart looks like. I've never used iHeart. I've used Apple, I've used Spotify, I've used some of the other ones, but I've used Podbean. I've never gone down the rabbit hole and seen like, what's iHeartRadio all about? Is it good? If you know something about it, let me know. And you can always follow me on social media at Kyle Seraphin, and I will play back and forth with you. I will do weird things and say strange stuff to you. Should we find a picture of something? I'm going to do a little quick, just a breather that has nothing to do with anything because there's enough serious things going on. Let me find this horrible video. There's a video of an enormous woman. And it is frustrating because she's truly huge. Let me see here. Where did this video go? Maybe I didn't download it. Maybe I thought better of it. She's like 500 pounds getting dragged up a lift onto a plane. Cutting down flock. Actual shooting video. Yeah, I've got some, how did I not find this? Well, good. I won't subject you guys to it. What I will do is tell you the story. So anyway, there's a video that's running around online right now. It kind of went viral. It's this huge black lady. She's got to be close to 500 pounds. I say that as somebody who has moved patients up to 750 pounds when I was a paramedic, and it's pretty awful. It's awful for them. It's awful for the people moving them. Everything about it is awkward. It's terrible to see that there's like a human being that is basically this gelatinous mass, and there's clearly something going on there. So mental illness, and I can be sensitive to the fact that we've got a sad scenario, but the amount of burden that you've put on the people around you, really, really gross. Now, not everybody who gets on a plane, is being an inconsiderate a-hole based on just their size. And I do think at some point, there's a guy named Mike Henry. He does Mr. Guns and Gear. That's his channel. He's on YouTube. He's on X. He's on some other places. I know he's on Facebook and so on. Great dude. Like him. Love his reviews. Love his sanity. He calls these women high calorie. I think men are high calorie. There were some high calorie people on my plane. I was on a Southwest Air flight, which not a big fan. All right. The high calorie people actually they both bought single tickets. And these people were like close to 300 pounds, if I had to guess. They weren't the 500 pound, like dragged up in a chair, couldn't walk kind of people, but they were huge. And so they went and found a second open row and, abandoned a seat, and the guy went and he spilled in, and they put him in the front with the extra legroom, which is interesting because the extra legroom seats, they have these like solid armrests that don't come up. So they were squished in there. So their lower body was like wedged in, and then their upper body was like spilling out over the top. Very unfortunate. It's kind of crazy what we do. Like our health system, it reminds me that we haven't done the Make America Healthy Again thing. I think Americans were like, maybe I'll just vote for it and then I won't do anything about my life. Like I'm not going to change my body. Okay. It's one thing to be huge and get on a plane. And sometimes you got to go somewhere. Fine. I wish there was a better way. It's another thing. And I think I sent, there might even be people in the chat who have seen this picture, but I will post it on social media because it drove me absolutely nuts. They were two normal size folks that I will say are roughly my parents' age, which by the way is like roughly George Hill's age. They were in their mid to late 60s, I will estimate, potentially a little bit older. And they went on the plane and they sat next to me and they took up all the overhead bin space, which is super frustrating when one person fills it up with like 4 things and you knocked out like 6 feet of storage. Dickhead move. Absolute dickhead move. The second thing they did was they brought 2 full-size freaking dogs on there, and they were in one of the seats that had the extra legroom, but it means it didn't have the front storage. It was right up against the bulkhead at the front of the airliner. They brought a full-size standard poodle and an Australian shepherd, and then shoved them under their feet, and then the dude put his feet up on the wall the entire time we flew. It was a 3-hour flight, and the dog was like in and out of my space. If you think that you're in your 60s and you need to bring your dog with you, and you put on one of those fake vests, and we all know you're a faker. You freaking fakes that are like, oh, it's my service animal. Like, I couldn't survive without this dog. This dog was not monitoring for seizures or heart disease or epileptic failures. These dogs are like your buddies that you wanted to take to hotels with you. One of which was hypoallergenic. The other one was not. So freaking annoying. And one of the things that you see when you travel, which is why I hate traveling, and I used to do it all the time. When I was in the military, I traveled quite a bit. When I was in the FBI, I did it quite a bit as well. So I don't like business travel. Is that you find out like how many? It's not like a whole plane full of assholes. It's like 2 people that are assholes that screw it up for the whole plane. And I saw those people getting it. You guys have had that same experience. I saw these people in the line to board the plane. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to sit next to these people. I always end up sitting next to the people that bring a full-size dog. I also saw a woman shove her full-size, like Labrador Retriever under the underhead, the underseat bin in a plane before. And it's like, what is wrong with you sickos? Leave your dog at home. Be a grown-up. Neither here nor there. But an interesting sort of moment where we've got people that are so self-interested and navel-gazing that they're going to bring their poodle with them, their huge poodle, not like a little poodle like in a bag, like a huge poodle that was bigger than my kids. Each of these animals was bigger than my kids, and I have to buy a full-size seat for my kids. And they're service dogs. Anyway, it lets you kind of know like where the mindset is at in this country. That there are people who are just going to focus in like, what's good for me? I'm going to get mine. I'm going to put my freaking dog underneath the seat, and I'm going to inconvenience anybody that's around me because I don't give a shit. I do think that's a real thing. And I do think that's part of the reason why we're here, is that we've sort of lost the culture of just being a decent human being for those around us. Is that going to segue nicely into this story? I don't know. Maybe. This is a story that's coming from an NPR affiliate in Utah. Donald Trump slashes Utah Bears ears and the Grand Staircase Escalante by 90%. You're like, what the heck are those things? Those things are national monument spaces. And you know what? It's maybe a Democrat thing, but I actually do really like having a huge amount of public land. If you've never lived in a place where there is public land, where there's land for like, it's owned by the United States of America, then maybe you haven't ever been able to experience this. But our national park system is not the only space that is for people. When I lived in New Mexico, a huge chunk of that state is public land, and it means that there's land available for all people. And you can go out there and you can do camping, and maybe you can do hunting, and you can do hiking. And I used to do it all the time. And it's kind of awesome to be able to just know that there's open spaces that are not controlled by another person. If you are living, let's say, to the east of the Mississippi, you probably don't experience this in any way. There's a couple of parks, state parks, maybe there's some national parks that you can get into, but the West is full of public lands, and they're accessible to everybody. And it's kind of special. So this move by Donald Trump, I think, is actually not great. For the second time, and the reason why is because the people that are behind it, I have zero faith in them. You're seeing Spencer Cox, who's the Utah governor. You're also seeing in this picture that's on the screen right now, Mike Lee, who would like you to believe that he's based Mike Lee, but it always seems like it favors real estate developers. He was talking about selling off federal lands. Well, who's going to buy it? You? Me? No. People that are building like shitty houses on what used to be Bureau of Land Management, American land. Not ideal. For the second time in the past decade, 2 Utah national monuments have had their protections dramatically reduced by the Trump administration, flanked by Utah's full delegation, which is the state speaker of the House, the governor, their senator. Donald Trump signed 2 proclamations. I don't know why I had a problem with that one. Proclamations to shrink the National Staircase Escalante National Monument by around 90% and the Bears Ears National Monument by 91%. They've been pushing this kind of since day one. This was his like, we don't have enough housing, we should sell off federal lands bit. And the people that were pushing it were kind of pushing it in the worst way possible. I saw somebody in our comments that made a very good comment over on Spotify, pointing out that when a private-public partnership exists, that is essentially what fascism is. And I don't disagree. At the bare bones of it, when the federal government or any actual government is pushing in and saying, hey, here's what we'd like from fill in the blank private industry, and then the private industry is rewarded because they end up doing exactly what the government wants, they're getting the policy they like by engaging a theoretically private model. That's fascism, guys. And so when we did the analysis maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, beginning of the week, I was bringing up the fact that the United States has a degree of socialism, and it's 25, maybe 30%. It has a degree of capitalism, maybe it's 60 to 75%, something like that. There is a percentage, maybe 5, maybe 8, maybe 10%, but I think it's a growing percentage that really falls into fascism, because socialism would mean that the government actually owned and operated things. Fascism means that the government leans on private businesses, and if they want to prosper, then they're going to do the policy of the government. And so we do have a fair amount of fascism. And I think it's growing in sectors like it's growing in housing. It's grown in healthcare. That's been a big industry for it. Obviously, the military industrial complex and the kind of buildings of things on behalf of the military, government contracting in general, and the information service as well. There are industries that are clearly growing in, not to be sort of like saying words that leftists say, inartfully, but the accurate definition of fascism. That's not a great thing. If you think that free markets are the way, if you think that people should be able to make the best decisions, and if you think that at this point, it's kind of baked into the cake that the federal government has lands and it does have space, and those spaces have been preserved for all of us, it'd be kind of nice if they kept it for us. Reducing these things by 90, 91% and taking away national monument spaces are not quite the same as a national park. That means there's a lot of use that you can have, but they're very limited in what you can do, and development is basically, it's very stifled. And so when you reduce the size of a national monument, you basically free up lands for other things. All right. The president framed it as a win for local control, if only that was a thing he was really into it as a general rule. If Donald Trump was all about states' rights, maybe it'd be a better thing. He said, we've done something that I think was desperately needed. It was very unfair to the people of Utah, and now fairness has been brought back. Yeah, that's what we think. It's going to be better taken care of, and they'll be able to use it a little. Utah Governor Spencer Cox said the change was called right sizing. If there's a bullshit name associated with something, it always freaks me out. Saying the intention of the monuments was to manage the smallest area possible to protect the antiquities. This does not remove the other protections that already exist in those areas. It's just making the monuments more manageable so that we have the resources necessary to protect these antiquities. None of those words mean anything. I'll read it back to you. You tell me what it means. Feel free. I'm watching the chat. Quote, this does not remove the other protections that already exist in those areas, just making the monuments more manageable so that we have the resources necessary to continue to protect these antiquities. Didn't Kamala Harris say something like this once? She was like, the things that we're doing are the right things, and so we're going to continue doing the things we're doing because that's the things that we need to be doing. That's what I just heard. These executive orders are not a surprise. The Trump administration has reduced monument boundaries during his first term, 2017. At that point in time, he halved the grand staircase's size and he cut bears' ears by 83%. Both those monuments were restored in 2021 by former President Joe Biden. This also kind of tells you the failing nature of our government. There's no permanence because none of these things are done by act of Congress. These are just executive orders saying this is what we're going to recognize as boundaries, and I'm the boss of the executive. And then a new executive comes in and says, nah, we actually are not going to relinquish any of this space, so you can't do this. So we're calling it a national monument, and then we're not calling it a national monument. These are ceremonial. The danger, I think, is the people that are cheering it on. They seem like they're big state kind of guys. Again, Republicans are agnostic to the size of government as long as it's their government. So if we're doing it, it's good. And it's good because it's us, and we're the good guys in our own version. I promise you the Democrats feel the same thing about the things they're doing. They absolutely think that the stuff that they're getting involved in is it's the right answer. Okay? They're not doing it because they think they're a villain. This would sound villainous if you sat there and did just the numbers on it. How about this little quick thing? This is Elise Slotkin, former CIA, currently bragging that the SAVE Act was defeated. Now, everyone calls it the SAVE Act, but they mean the Save America Act. I think there was a SAVE Act and it was something else. The Save America Act is the voter ID. It's the It's the attempt for the federal government to come in and do some nationalized security measures on state elections, which is what we have. State elections put people into national office. I don't know that it's the right answer. I know that if you're going to go and just get after it, then you better be much more aggressive. I also know that something like 80%, maybe 83, maybe 85% of Americans, when polled on both parties, do support the idea of secured elections and voter ID, which means I know that we're not going to get it. I'll say that just one more time. Because Americans support it overwhelmingly, I'm fairly confident we will not get it. There is a danger in federalizing state level elections. There's also a significant danger where states just steal it because they're doing fraud. And this woman says the quiet part out loud. I'm going to listen to it real quickly with you, and then we're going to reflect on it.
The other thing that we blocked yesterday was the SAVE Act, right? Which was literally allow this administration to rig our democracy so that it would be hard for any Democrat in any state to win any election. And disenfranchise all married women in the meantime, by the way. It just, you have to show your birth certificate at the polls if you have a married name.
I mean, that's false for whatever it's worth. That's completely false. You don't have to show your birth certificate. How many of you are married to a woman who changed her last name? How many of you are a woman who changed your last name when you got married? You know, like everyone did. Up until 10 seconds ago. It turns out you can actually figure out how to exist. My wife got professional licenses changed over. She got her driver's license changed over. She got her bank accounts changed over. She got her taxes changed over. You can do it. It's doable. Women have been able to navigate this thing. Doesn't it kind of say a lot about what you think about women, that they're basically impossible? They're unable to exist. It's the same attitude that I find these people have about black people. They're like, you can't make them have ID. They'll never be able to figure out this morass of government bullshit. And you're like, and yet they do. Incredible. How about that? My wife and I, coming up on 13 years, she somehow figured it out. I mean, she just go figure. These women that are capable of walking around and spending money and driver's licenses, and we let them vote and all these other wild things. We let them have jobs. Alicia Slotkin, we're going to disenfranchise all women by making them show up with the actual ID. There's a million things you have to do to get your life in order if you change your last name. And women do it within the first 6 months of getting married. All of them do. Or they don't, or they keep their old name. Not a big fan of that. There's a lot of reasons why. My wife's a child of divorce, so we talked about how these things kind of played in and why she always thought it was kind of frustrating. The idea that your parents have the same name. This is something that we're going to have a discussion about divorce, the nature of divorce, no-fault divorce, and what it does. There's some constitutional challenges in the state of Texas, so I'm going to bring on a guest who's working with the FDIC. I met it out in Las Vegas, and we're going to do this in the near future. The discussion is like, what does all this cost our society? And there's a lot of cost. But one of the things that most people don't think is that when the wife doesn't take the name of the man, that means that the children, generally speaking, take the name of their father. And then you've got mom, who's not really committed to the family. She doesn't have the same name. Why is that? And there's questions for young children. And I know that because I've got young children. And that would be very confusing to my 5-year-old and more confusing to my 3-year-old, 2.5-year-old. It is kind of telling you how nanny state they want to be. So I always see this as being a problem. Democrats are kind of like, they're coddling people and they want to act like this. And this is why the political left is not particularly interesting to point out, because I just think their arguments are so weak. Like that argument is, I can shoot holes through it with a belt-fed machine gun. There's a million holes in that argument. And people cheered for it. And yet, if you were to go out and poll people, broadly speaking, across America, do you think it's reasonable to show ID to do something like, vote in national elections? The argument has been made. The reason you know that elections aren't real is because if they were, then they wouldn't let us do them. If they actually mattered, they wouldn't let us do that. And we're at the point now where we can kind of see through. They wouldn't let us do that, would they? Axios had a story yesterday that I thought was quite interesting. This is the Axios C-suite, the House Democrats that you need to know. A couple things that are in here. I'll list the 6 that they think are the power people in the House from the political left side. But if you'll notice, 1, 2, 3, 4. How old is Jamie Raskin? I got to look this up. Hold on. Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin is 63. Oh, he's a boomer too. Good. So of them, when you look at these people, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5. I think 5 of the 6 are boomers, which was what I walked away with. And the only reason that's relevant is because we just had Lindsey Graham die at 71 years old. And people are looking for conspiracy theories to explain it. They're looking because what? When you're wealthy, when you're in power, you can't die? You're 71. Every one of you who's in your 60s have friends that have died at that age. Every one of you have. I know that because I've been around my parents and I've seen their friends. You know, every once in a while I hear a story. It's like, it's really sad, but like one of their friends has died. People start dying in their 50s all the time. It's not crazy to think a 71-year-old would have an aortic dissection, would have a heart attack, would have a deep vein thrombosis from a 14-hour flight and a 12-hour train ride, and then gets up and throws a clot and dies. Like, this stuff happens to 30-year-olds, and they survive because they're 30. You do it to somebody in their 70s, it's game over. Especially if it's unwitnessed and they're by themselves at their apartment because they're unmarried and they have no children and there's nobody that's looking after them. Just saying, there's some real possibilities here. So anyway, this is the C-suite. I'm going to read you who they are. This is the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Robert Garcia. He's one of the youngers. Then you have Frank Pallone. We should look up how old he is, too. He's at the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee. I'm going to look him up real quick. Why is he looking that? That's not what I wanted. No. Bear with me, guys. We do this thing live, so sometimes sometimes we got to go and pull this information into the space. I get these curiosities where I just want to know. It's like, how old are these people? How old are the folks that are... He's been in the House of Representatives since 1988. What do you think about that? What are the odds that Frank Pallone... Is it Pallone or Pallone? There we go. Stand by. 74. Well, he looks pretty good for 74. Good for you, bro. Well done. So there's another one of them. Jurisdiction ranging from algorithmic pricing to children's safety online. He's out in front on data centers. So there's your energy and commerce section. The oversight and government reform is like the opposite of government reform. It just does nothing. Ways and means. Richard Neal. He's out of Massachusetts. This is kind of incredible. This woman, what do we say? She's like the female Gargamel. This is Rosa DeLauro. Rosa DeLauro is one of the weirdest people that you'll ever find in anything. There she is. And she's 83 years old. What is keeping her together? Did you guys ever see the movie The Emperor's New Groove? It's got David Spade. It's really well done. It's really funny. The guy from The Tick is in there. He does the voice. And they have the bad woman is basically Rosa DeLauro. And her name is Yzma, and she's like a witch, and she's like 1,000 years old. Rosa DeLauro looks like an ancient old man in drag, right? She's so bizarre. It's so bizarre that person represents anybody. Anyway, she's on the Appropriations Committee. I guess she's the ranking member there. I guess you get to be the ranking member when you're in your 80s and you're still in public office, and you say goofy things and you have purple hair dye. And then, multiple times named as one of the most corrupt members of Congress, probably one of the most corrupt members of Congress in history, is Maxine Waters of the financial services. That's what I would do. What I would like to do is say, who is really bad with money? Who is likely the biggest fraud? And then I'd be like, you should put them in charge of financial services. If you benefited from lax financial oversight over the past couple of years, you risk being tied up into that public narrative, especially if you talk to Trump officials about it. Maxine Waters of California. And then the Judiciary Committee is Jamie Raskin, who has been kind of like weak. If Jamie Raskin had any sense, he'd be reaching out to the suspendables, because at least at the end of the day, we could go after his enemy, which is the Trump Judiciary, the Trump sort of Justice Department. And we would be able to give him some stuff on that. That gives me a good opportunity to kind of bring on what's happening in the Justice Department. If you guys don't realize this, we have Todd Blanche in there, and Todd Blanche, who is not my buddy Alex Jones's favorite. Todd Blanche is in the middle of working towards confirmation. So he was confirmed as a member of the Judiciary, or the Justice Department rather, as the Deputy Attorney General, but he has to go again to become the Attorney General. I was wondering, how are things going? And I thought maybe I could go to some MAGA cheerleaders. Maybe I could find the most nasally, closeted dude to cheer on Todd Blanche. This actually makes me not like Todd Blanche, but there's nobody in the Trump administration this guy does not knob slob for. Let's do a quick little thing about what's happening there. And the only reason that's interesting to me too is that the folks that answer to Todd Blanche directly, including formerly his chief counsel, are the ones that are negotiating with me and other members of the FBI, stating that they were, they were going to try to make a settlement with us over the COVID policies under the last administration. Do you know what deal we have? None. We are in July. We are now 18 months into this administration. No deal so far. And they're Todd Blanche's people. I'm optimistic that they might do something, but not in reality. In reality, I kind of believe in the nothing will happen sort of TM moment. So that's kind of frustrating. Stand by. Here's a taste of some knob gobbling, slobbering, nasally weirdos. You guys think it's Pressler, but it's not.
The confirmation of Todd Blanche, how tough is that going to be? Are we going to hold people together to actually vote for this? Because the Democrats are lying in wait right here, and they're going to relitigate all of Trump's year and a half is going to be relitigated in this confirmation hearing, sir.
Yeah, Todd Blanche is going to be confirmed as the next Attorney General of the United States by August recess. The Article 3 project is going to make damn sure that happens, teaming up with the War Room Posse. Go to article3project.org and take.
I'm pretty sure this guy's entire purpose is to just, 1, knob slob the Trump administration, 2, collect money, and 3, promote his garbage. Look at the difference. If you're watching on the screen right now, Steve Bannon has not looked up since he asked the question. He has to ask the question because this is his guest and he knows he has to fill 4 hours worth of like Trump slobbery. But Mike Davis is just, I don't know how somebody can talk out of the top of their nose the way that he does, but he does it every single time. And here he is shilling for money. Not a favorite of my friend Viva, not a favorite of Robert Barnes. They've had some pretty damning statements about him. Let's keep going.
Action and contact both of your home state senators. Email, patch through phone calls, social media, Democrat and Republicans. Steal the spines of the Republicans.
Steal the spines of the Republicans. That might be the silliest thing you ever heard.
Make the Democrat senators feel less sure-footed, like we did during Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation. But the reason Todd...
Just to be clear, Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed. So there was that.
Blanche is going to be confirmed is because he is qualified for the job. Every Senate Republican voted to confirm him as Deputy Attorney General. By statute, the Deputy Attorney General has almost every power as the Attorney General. He's done a great job as the Deputy Attorney General for almost 2 years. He's been the acting Attorney General for the last many months, and there's no reason that any Senate Republican would not vote for him after they all voted for him before. We see Pam Bondi showed once again today why I'm her biggest fan, because she's bold. She's fearless. These Democrats brought a butter knife to a gunfight, and it did not go well for them. Pam plays nobody's fool. She came prepared, in command. She clearly laid out her successes as President Trump's Attorney General, how she's making America safe again.
I never realized that he might be one of the most stilted readers of sloppy shit that I've ever heard. I'm turning it off. Sorry. That was him praising Pam Bondi after Pam Bondi came out and did the most tone deaf thing in the world, which was she said the Dow is over 50,000 and we should be talking about that. And he says things like this. It's wild to listen to it because you just go, how is this guy on a professional broadcast? They have a lot more money to be able to produce a show. They have a lot more sort of professionalism. I've listened to Bannon talk. At least Bannon can bullshit indefinitely. I mean, he's very capable of just running his mouth the same way I am. I don't know why you put a Mike Davis out there. I don't. I really don't. It's mind-numbingly stupid garbage to be able to do that. And they keep pushing him out. And there must be some benefit to somebody. But he continues to put his face out in a place where, the slop consumers get it, and they must donate to his garbage. He's a Chuck Grassley cheerleader. He's an acolyte of Chuck Grassley, and his entire purpose is that Chuck Grassley has to stay alive. I'm pretty confident they will put him in some sort of alcohol preserve in order to maintain this. They will do the Weekend at Bernie's routine with like Mitch McConnell right now. Same way. And he has a terrible voice. And he's also unmarried and allegedly gets involved with dudes after hours and so on and so forth. I've had some really strange conversations with people in the DC area that shared with me their thoughts about him. He is definitely not the Batman of that show. He is the Robin. Whatever you think about Robin, exactly that. All right. If you guys are watching on Rumble, give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like there as well. If you have not subscribed to both of those channels, do it just because you never know when one of them is going to disappear. And I don't know what that's going to mean. I do see things happening weird. We even had our episode yesterday blocked over on Spotify. It disappeared because there was like 12 seconds of some sort of a music that they didn't like. Make sure you guys have a backup way to find us if you haven't done so already. Sometimes the channels do weird things. That being said, very much appreciate all you guys sitting through and watching with us. Make sure you leave us a comment. There will be an ad, most likely, from the guys at Spotify on the audio platforms right now. And I say that because I know that they do weird things with the audio levels. They strangely will like bump up the Tide commercial or the Dan Bongino show or whatever the heck it is, or Ben Shapiro trying to come in and tell you like, it hits you in a way. I just wanted to let you know when I'm doing this. If you're ever watching and you see that the fuzzy screen come up with the static in the background, it's a visual cue to know maybe I turn this down just a little bit because I'm probably going to get hit with an ad. All right, let's go to the main story of the day. Whatever, it's the main story. It's not really that interesting. It's actually just an affirmation that we have an utterly unserious situation, an utterly unserious moment. And what's the most serious thing you could do in the legislature? You could be a senator, I think. This is coming from Axios. Darline Graham Nordone. Darline Nordone. Who's that? Who's Darline Nordone? Oh, that's the sister of Lindsey Graham, who's going to be named to be a senator, because we just are going to do like sort of like the widow's continuation game. We're just going to put somebody into office because they're a person who knows somebody. Do you want to know what this sounds like? One of the worst things you'll ever hear. This is Henry McMaster, who is naming the sister of Lindsey Graham and appointing her to finish out his Senate seat. For everybody that is excusing this and being like, it's just till January, it's not even that important, we're going to have real money. No, you have to argue what the reason is. There are serious things that theoretically happen. Either they do or they don't. Either the Senate matters or it doesn't. Either the House matters or it doesn't. Either these seats are important and it's our representation, or it's not. And I think it's probably not. You guys tell me. Here's 60 seconds of some of the weirdest things said. I'm going to try to stop a couple times in there because he says some strange things where you're like, oh, what was that?
Day under the law, it's my duty and honor to name someone to serve in the place of this irresistible man.
What was so irresistible? Hold on. Did you just say that Lindsey Graham was irresistible? Why don't you say that he's also delicious? This delicious and irresistible man. It is my honor. I love it when people do like the deep Southern thing. Apparently Lindsey Graham was irresistible. I just want you guys to hear that. I'm going to do it one more time because it's weird. And then you tell me if that's normal. Have you ever called someone irresistible?
This irreplaceable man, this extraordinary law, is my duty and honor to name someone to serve in the place of this irresistible man, this irreplaceable man, this extraordinary man.
I say, he was delicious. He was irresistible. He was extraordinary. He was irreplaceable. I say, is my honor, nay, duty.
For the remainder of his term. Lindsey took care of his little sister in years long departed.
In years long departed? Is he just saying things that he thinks sound clever?
It's my honor to ask his little sister, Darline Graham, to finish his work for him now. And by the way, Darline, I don't know if I told you, but after we spoke on the phone in the wee hours of Sunday morning,
it's the wee hours,
and you agreed to serve through tears, Earlier, I had wondered what you would say, and I was humbled by your quickness to see the duty that you had to serve.
And I now need someone to bump me off this microphone, which I'm putting my face into. Actually, I can't even make my microphone sound as bad. I don't know why they do this. So this is a dynamic mic. If you guys don't know the difference, there's a dynamic and then there's a condenser mic. The condenser mic grabs everything actively, and the dynamic is a passive stream so that you have to project at it. So if I were to talk over here, you can see if I turn to the right, it goes away. They don't use those. They use condenser mics whenever they do these things. And then these people basically put it down their throat and then they breathe on it to the point where you're going like, is there not a single audio person anywhere in politics, anywhere, at the state level, at the federal level, at the hearings? Can they not get someone to like block the plosives and put on a freaking windscreen? They all need like a dead cat. That's what it's called, but it's like the fuzzy thing to block because none of these people know how to do it. So you got McMaster there. He's humbled by your quickness. I say, well, someone just bumped me out of the way here and let Darline, who quickly, through tears, agreed to be a senator for no reason. Of course, she's 62 years old because we couldn't find anybody that was younger than that to go step into a place. Also, the FBI is like hanging out in Lindsey Graham's office. Maybe he had a skiff there. Maybe they needed to go collect a bunch of stuff that he wasn't supposed to have. Darline Graham Nordine, born June 12th, 1964. She's right on the edge. I don't know what the edge is of boomers, but he's right on the edge of it. She's an American public administrator who is the United States Senator designate for South Carolina, a sister who's going to take over the office of her now passed brother, Lindsey Graham, who is both he's irresistible, and an irreplaceable man who will be replaced. Have you ever heard someone say that something is irreplaceable and then they immediately name their replacement? That's a weird thing to do too, isn't it? Do they not know what words mean? In years long gone to pass and bygones forever from then times when we are now standing from whence there was. It's not charming. Following his death, she was appointed to fill his Senate seat by South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. How old is this dude? I'm just going to start asking. That's like the only thing I care about anymore. How old? He's born in 1947, so he's about 70. What is he, about 79? Awesome. He's about 79. Cool. Well, that explains it. He's talking about a time from whence there was no more, so there was, and they had not yet even believed to begin to create the technologies for the recording of the things so that the playback sounded like you were a drunken buffoon. Oh, look at this guy. Hold on, look at this. Look how long this guy's been in politics, too. He served in the military till 1975, and then he was in office. He was the Attorney General for South Carolina in 1981, before I was born. That guy's been in politics for 45 years. Then I'll just keep saying nonsense. People recognize me from my voices and saying stuff. I actually hate these people. I hate them that they've turned something that should be important and should matter to us into just a cartoon. You guys are saying that he's Foghorn Leghorn. I don't even know if he's that. Foghorn Leghorn, it made sense. He was silly, but he made sense. And he was a cartoon rooster. And we basically have that as the governor in South Carolina. South Carolina governor appoints Lindsey Graham's sister to finish his Senate term. Here's when I know that you're not a standalone. When you are the girl who is the friend of FBI Director Kash Patel, you're only identified as the girl who is the friend of FBI Director Kash Patel. They can't just say your name and it stands alone with any value. Same story for this woman. He announced that Darline Graham Nordine. Who's that? Oh, that's Lindsey Graham's sister. Why does it matter? Because she didn't have a standalone name recognition. All right. Let's read what this story says. Today, under the law, it's my duty to, and honor, which I forgot about a moment ago. Whenever you say duty, you must also say honor. because I'm 80 years old, to name someone to serve in the place of this. They even quoted it perfectly. This is so good. I'm going to actually place that again. Irresistible man, this irreplaceable man, we're going to replace him with Graham's sister. Lindsey did this thing in years long departed. They actually quoted all the best part. I now love whoever these writers are. Rebecca Shabbat and Raquel Cornell Uribe. Way to go. You guys quoted the best parts of that nonsense. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him, except he is not there at all. So no one can be there for him because he has passed away from some wild stuff. You guys want to hear what Donald Trump said about it? Lindsey Graham was basically like Donald Trump's family. You probably didn't know this. Didn't like him at all, except that he loved him. Here's Donald Trump on the passing of Lindsey Graham.
I don't know exactly, but I got a message about 1 o'clock in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually. It's amazing.
Mr. President,
it's amazing.
He was such an advocate. He was, if he wanted to get something, and he had a unique ability. He was able to deal with Democrats and Republicans. If I had a problem, a real problem, I wouldn't often ask. But if I had a problem with a Democrat, he could work it out. He was a great politician, actually.
He sounds totally torn up about this. Donald Trump might be sociopathic. He was a member of the family. You heard him say that. He was like a member of the family. Watch this one.
Lindsey Graham once called for Putin to be, taken out. You have any suspicions or worries? Do you think we know the whole story about his death?
Well, I think we do. We've had great doctors, and they talked about, a certain part of his body literally blew up. And that's a condition I believe his father had also. His father died very, very young from heart complications, and that's what Lindsey had. And it's something that's, number one, is very tough to see. And even if you see it, it's hard to fix, very hard to fix. And, he had a problem with arteries, and I thought he was like a 70% blockage. I said, Lindsey, you're going to have to go and take care of that. But this was not that problem. This was a different problem that wasn't really related. So.
Did he just say a part of his body blew up? Does anyone say it? Who talks like this? If you want to go ahead and give people an opportunity to do weird things and think like, well, maybe there's more to this story than that. Was Lindsey Graham blown up in Ukraine when he was visiting a drone factory? And they're like, nah. And then right after, you get the president of the United States going, it's like, some part of his body was blown up. He was part of the family. He was a great guy. He was really good with Democrats. He would always be really good at talking to Democrats. Why was he so good at talking to Democrats? Why do we think that was? And then it was like, yep. And then part of his body blew up. Not the whole body, obviously. We don't want to get you down that road, but like some part internally. It was the same part of his body that his father blew up.
And Lindsey Graham once called for Putin to be, taken out. You have any suspicions or worries? Do you think we know the whole story about his death?
Well, I think we do. We've had great doctors, and they talked about, a certain part of his body literally blew up. And that's a condition I believe his father had also. His father died.
It literally blew up, guys. That's a Steve Friend pet peeve. The literally bit. I don't think his heart literally blew up. No, he had a theoretically, he had his arterial dissection. Means that some part of it failed. The continuity of the lumens of the blood vessel were no longer intact. And it's like, what are we doing? Would any of you ever talk about somebody having a heart attack or having an arterial dissection and be like, you know what? I love that person so much. Part of their body literally blew up 2 days ago. I'm still trying to figure out what it means. His dad had that thing. His dad blew up. So many people in his family had blown up already. This is why people go down the crazy rabbit hole. This is why people end up doing the weird thing. I talked yesterday and I got some notice from you guys that it was amusing to you. I didn't. It's amusing to me that weird things happen, like bugs jump on my windshield, and then I think that they are my friend Ryan Matta. I actually wanted to show you the bug on the windshield. So if you're just listening, you won't be able to see this. But if you're watching right now, now's the time to tune into the screen. This is a picture from a parking lot in the Lakeline Mall area of Austin, Texas, of Ryan Matta the grasshopper. You can see the legs are gripping with everything he's got, holding onto the windshield. This is how serious we are right now. We're that serious. Also, is that not a huge bug? That's a big freaking bug, guys. That grasshopper is enormous. That's a really pretty decent picture, too, of a huge bug. In any case, that's about as serious as the people that are running this country, that a bug named Ryan Matta could also be the guest star of our show today. All right, let's do a couple more stories on here. I'm going to get into the pieces of, by the way, I'm going to give you a couple. So let me just show you this. I'm going to give you a couple articles if you guys want to read more about Lindsey Graham's sister, more than the things that I'm making. I just think it shows that we are an utterly unserious nation. It's not the first time that somebody's put a widow into space like this and filled in the back pressure. I don't know why we think that because you are married to the guy that you could be the guy, or that you are married to the woman that you could be the woman, or whatever the thing is. I don't know why Charlie Kirk's wife is running Turning Point when she's a mom. All these things are pretty similar to me. It's this instinct that you can just fill the seat with anybody. All they're telling me is that these are just placeholders, and that the real policy is somewhere else. Okay, so I've got the behind the paywall piece from, what is this, Axios, if you want to read that, the Politico, same deal. I've ripped a couple of them. Here's why I actually think it theoretically should matter, and why I think that we're in a place where I know it doesn't anymore. This is Tom Massey's quote from this morning. I saw this pop up. This was this morning, 45 minutes before we went live. He says the following. To fund an overextended empire, the Roman emperors debased their coins by diluting the precious metal contents within. This week, Congress will vote to eliminate the penny, which is mostly zinc, since 1982. Again, when I tell you that a lot of these problems predate anybody that's living today, that's the reason why. My entire lifetime, pennies have been essentially useless. You could still find pennies that were made before my life, and they had value because they were copper. But generally speaking, the penny, since 1982, has been mostly zinc, and therefore pretty much of no value. Faith and credit only. The same bill, Massey says, will allow the United States Mint to make nickels with cheaper material, which I'm pretty confident is already cheaper than it was. And for those of you that have ever been coin people, you can go deep into the weeds and you can go find coins. You can find ones that still have a percentage of silver, and that's always kind of cool. And they have a melt value. Maybe they have a collectible value. People are going out and you find quarters and nickels and dimes that had value, but most of these are before most of you were ever born, or they were right around the time when you were born if you're one of the older members of our audience. If you're Chuck Grassley, they were still paying people in, gold coins and $5 gold pieces or whatever, $20 gold pieces. You got $5 gold Indians. That's what you got. That was enough to buy a house or something, I think, when Chuck Grassley was a kid. But for most of us, these coins have been debased, and debasing of the currency is one of the obvious signs of a failing empire. And in the same way that I heard George Hill say that you have this sort of two choices. The United States wanted to be an empire but not be an empire, because we don't have an emperor. We have like this elected president guy who comes in and he's like temporary emperor, and he's not particularly effective, and he's not even supposed to be in charge of things. Anyway, if Congress is going to debase our currency, which is something that happened in many empires, the Romans did it and so did others, but you can go back and look at what happens when you debase the currency, and all of it points to decline. We are also in a time when things go faster than they ever have before. And so it's pretty obvious to me that there is going to be a decline. The question is, what will the decline be? And what will it look like on our end? And I don't have an answer for you. I really don't. But anyway, if you guys want to read this, I'll put this in the show notes here. You can read what the actual law is. They're proposing additions and subtractions to Title 31 of the U.S. Code, Section 5112. And this is the actual lined out, and this is the additional information allowing them to debase our currency, and they're voting on it. And again, we're putting in placeholders like sisters of guys to be able to vote on something, not knowing what the policies are, not having any kind of experience, and not really being picked by the people. They're being selected by an 80-year-old man who wants to do a tribute. Donald Trump said the same thing. We want to do a tribute to Lindsey Graham, who most MAGA people would have told you just a couple of months ago was garbage. And then apparently they got the reboot, the chip, saying that because the slop is coming our way that says Lindsey Graham is the MAGA, Remember, Lindsey Graham is MAGA. Ben Shapiro is MAGA. Who else is? Mark Levin is MAGA. Owen Schroyer is not MAGA. Many of you've been redefined. If you wanted transparency on Epstein, you're a problem. And by the way, who was the person that signed off on the closing of the Epstein case? That was 1 year ago. Oh, that was Todd Blanche. And he's going to be the MAGA. He's going to be the Attorney General. Anyway, just watching people, the currency being debased is the same thing as sort of the public trust that you had in your politicians getting debased. They're getting done in real time. And some people are still going to spend it like it's real. That's the difference. In any case. All right. Let's do a couple other little stories in here. This, I think, is worth bringing back up because it is going to make a resurgence. And I've seen probably 5 stories over the last couple days that are bringing it back up again. This one happens to be a very sympathetic version of the story, and it's coming from NPR. And the story is, don't try to run over ICE agents or federal agents because they can kill you. And I thought we actually went through all this stuff in December and January. This was actually the thing that defeated Greg Bovino, did it not? The outrage over 2 people who were leftists being hit by bullets from federal agents who were getting run over or involved in a conflict with them. This story is kind of interesting. Also, you can do anything you want as long as you get killed by a federal agent. It will immediately make you the good guy, apparently, in this case. There are people who should not be killed by federal agents, 100%, and there are bad shoots. Even though they are legally good shoots, they are morally bad. And then there's stuff like this, where it's like, well, what did you think he was going to do? The headline is, he was having a mental health crisis. The Memphis Task Force agents, these are federal agents, came and shot him. It's a hell of a headline. And there's the sympathetic grandma who's standing in the dark holding a picture of her grandson. This is all very confusing racially for looking at it because the grandma looks like she's got really light skin. The son looks like he might be black. I don't know if this is like spiritual grandma or like actual grandma. It says Cindy Leachman Aldridge holds a photo of her late grandson, Jonah Neal. This is on July the 12th. So this story is that was 1 day before the story was released. It lets us know that there is a trigger warning. This is kind of funny too. I don't know if you guys read NPR ever, but they'll put a trigger warning that this has mentions of suicide and mental illness. If you know someone who's looking for help, they can call 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. That's useful knowledge. It says the night that her son was having a mental breakdown, Jessica Neal called 911 hoping to save his life. Allow me to just dispel the rumor. If you call 911 and your child is having a mental breakdown, and he happens to be doing so with, let's go to the story, a handgun and threatening suicide, you are calling someone who will shoot and kill that person. Okay? Do you know this? Should know this. If you call armed agents to interdict someone who has a firearm and that person presents themselves as in imminent danger of death or serious physical injury, then that person is likely to get shot. They will at least meet the criteria for federal use of force. Instead of local police, federal agents showed up at her doorstep. Within minutes of entering her home, a special agent had shot her son. It would be hours before she found out that her son was dead, she added. All right. So, this is a training scenario that legitimately gets taught at Quantico. I imagine it's still there. There's a guy, he's sitting at a desk, he has a secretary, and he has a firearm in the drawer. He pulls out the firearm and he holds it to his own head, and you come in and you're supposed to be delivering him like a subpoena. And theoretically, the subpoena is going to get evidence of a crime, and then he's going to lose his business. So he decides he's going to kill himself. Okay. That's the scenario. Every agent that I'm aware of that went through the FBI Academy gets it. I have to imagine they have it in other federal agencies too. It's the suicide equals potential homicide training experience. And the reason is, if somebody's willing to kill themselves, the odds are they don't care if they take someone with you. The idea of murder, suicide, it crosses over. So homicidality and suicidality are both considered to be options for deadly force. And it's kind of crazy for most people because the deadly force policies for these law enforcement agencies are the same. They say essentially, this is the sort of limit of the Constitution. If someone presents an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to the officer or agent or another person, then deadly force is authorized. Here's the crazy part. If you put a gun to your head, you represent an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to you, another person. And I have the ability to engage in deadly force against you. The way they train it, and the only way that you survive the scenario, is you shoot the guy. You have to shoot the guy in the training scenario. It's the way I was trained. It's the way federal agents are trained, period. Okay? And the reason why is because it's so easy for this guy. They train it. If you don't shoot him and you try to negotiate with him, he shoots the secretary and then he shoots you. He shoots the secretary. He shoots your partner. He shoots the secretary. He shoots himself. And now you're there and you're responsible for not intervening in a potential deadly force scenario where it was appropriate. The person is pointed at someone. You have to fire the round. So this is crazy. You called people, law enforcement officers, to show up. And you're upset that you thought that you were going to save his life. And how is that going to happen? People who don't know him see him with a gun and you say he's crazy, he's suicidal, he's got a gun. Do something like give him a hug, stranger? No. You called armed federal agents, you called armed law enforcement of any kind. You should expect them to shoot him. That's what they do. Sorry. I actually am really sorry. It's an awful scenario, but this happens all the time and people always want to re-adjudicate this. Okay? The agents were with HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, which operates under the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Authorities. HSI was sent to Memphis as part of a crime-fighting task force comprised of roughly 350 federal agents and 1,450 members of the Tennessee National Guard, according to the United States Marshal Service. It began last fall under the direction of Donald Trump and the Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee. At least 5 people, including Jonah Neal, in May, have been shot by a member of the Memphis Safe Task Force. 4 of those confrontations were fatal. 4 out of 5 is pretty good shooting, I guess. That's generally you're aiming for center of mass and to stop the threat, which usually means the threat is dead. In one deadly encounter last week, 2 National Guard soldiers were the ones who fired their weapons. Okay. Again, this is NPR, and they're trying to point out how bad this is. I don't see the issue yet. And I'm not a person who says all use of force is acceptable. There has been a troubling drumbeat of shootings involving federal personnel as the Trump administration ramps up their use to address crime, clamp down on protests. See, look what they did. Look what this conflating is. Okay? To address crime, and then they've added clamp down on protests and conduct immigration enforcement as though those are all the same things. Well, it turns out clamping down on crime is one thing, and being in the area to be able to respond is one thing. Conducting immigration enforcement has brought out people who are protesting, and some of those people who are protesting are engaged in either violence or they're engaged in felonious behavior, some of which warrants deadly force. These are not all the same thing, but they're lumping them in together like, isn't this all bad? And this is the problem with editorial bias. When we read these things, you have to be able to read them and go, okay, I know what I'm looking at here. Last week in Texas, an ICE officer fatally shot an immigrant from Mexico during a traffic stop, making it the 26th incident where an immigration agent shot at civilians during Trump's term. Well, immigration agents are also civilians. I don't want to blow anybody's mind here, but there's not like combatants and non-combatants when we start talking about law enforcement. Law enforcement's job is to interact with members of the public. Members of the public are civilians. So are the people outside of the National Guard that are involved in it. Federal agents, state police, local county sheriff, all the deputies that would be like, oh, you're like a civilian. I can't tell you this stuff. You're a freaking civilian too. And if you've been in the military, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very silly to me to see people who are civilians claiming that they're non-civilians when they are in fact civilians. If you're not a uniformed member of the United States military, you're a civilian. You're civilian law enforcement. Literally, my savings account, my equivalent of a 401k from the FBI is from the civilian service, and the other side is from the uniformed service when I was in the military. Right? This is not that complicated. But they're acting like if you're going to step up the number of interactions that law enforcement has with the public, you're going to step up the use of force incidences just by virtue of there's a percentage of people that do not like being engaged by law enforcement. And when they do, some of them are going to get shot because they're going to do really dumb things that justify a shooting. Or some mom will call and be like, my baby boy is 25. He's got a handgun and he's suicidal and he's sitting in his room. And when they come in there, he's going to do something with the handgun that's going to cause him to get shot. You don't have to like it. It's not a happy moment. I'm sure that agent feels terrible. I guarantee you that person is not feeling great. And yet, somebody presents a handgun. That's what your training is. What else are you going to get? All right. The only press release involving Jonah Neal's death was released in May by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. It said members of the task force encountered him with multiple weapons inside the residence. By the way, he supposedly had a knife as well. The TBI added, at this time, it's not immediately clear whether he died as a result of the agent firing upon him or if it was a self-inflicted stab wound because he had a handgun and a knife and he was encountering law enforcement, and the odds are he didn't put it down. So we can say that these are inevitable consequences. This is actually the really danger. And I'm going to parlay this discussion. There's a couple other stories about people that are being shot by ICE in various places. Most of them seem like they're trying to run over ICE officers. It's a bad idea. People are trained to shoot through windshields, and the bullets that we were issued when I was in the Fed, I've got bullets that'll go through windshields, and they do minor deviations. Also, just like a broad understanding, if you've never seen anyone shoot through a windshield, when you shoot at the windshield, because of the rake of the windshield, which is, it's sloped down in front of you in the car, when it hits the windshield that's angled like this, the front of the bullet tips downward and it goes directly in. So as you're outside of a vehicle and you shoot into a vehicle, whether with a rifle or a handgun, when you fire that round, it tips down and they are like homing beacons right into the front seat. And the curve of the glass actually is set up so the driver can see most, appropriately and can see everything. The bullets tip down and they go directly into the seat, which is why they teach you if you're shooting and you're in a vehicle, the odds are you want to get out of it because the bullets vector in on that seat. When you're shooting from inside the vehicle out, the bullets hit that same windshield and they tip up and they tend to go over the person you're shooting at, which is why you usually have to shoot like 4 or 5 times. All right. So you got to fire multiple times. They call it porting the window. You got to make a hole big enough that your round is going to be unobstructed when it goes through. So some of them are going to go up necessarily, and it's not great. Anyway, long and short of it is, we should be expecting this sort of stuff. But when you have law enforcement interact with the members of the public, to include, let's say, people who are falsely identified by flock cameras, it's not surprising that some of these people are going to have negative outcomes. So if you voluntarily introduce yourself into law enforcement because of ICE or because of immigration stuff or because of these safe task force that are going out there trying to quell cities that are full of all kinds of bunch of crime that nobody wants to address, that's one problem. Second version of it is that when people are falsely identified by law enforcement tools and then you have an unnecessary law enforcement interaction, they could go sideways too. I'm just telling you, a lot of these stories will kind of have the same theme of danger to the public. I'm not crazy about it, but there's going to be unnecessary interaction. Necessary. If you're going to put a bunch of ICE agents and a bunch of people that are doing deportations, they're necessarily going to interact with more people, and some of those people will do dumb stuff. It is known. Promise you. All right. Like on Rumble, like on YouTube. You may hear an ad right now on the audio platforms. I'll leave a space for it at this moment. And make sure you guys are giving us a comment over on Spotify if you're watching there. Otherwise, give us a 5-star review, and I appreciate that. I'll go back to reading some of the 5-star reviews. I bet you there's some crappy reviews, too. That'll be kind of fun to read. I don't know why I think that. All right, we're going to finish up with the story here. The woman says, I want answers, the mom. It was May 20th, and I don't know anything. Well, it turns out you kind of do know something. You knew that you called the police. You knew that your kid was suicidal, that he had a gun and a knife in the room, and somebody shot him or he stabbed himself. Either way, he's not with you. It's awful. You don't need all that. And then they always do this thing where they go and interview the grandma. Are you ready for this? This is like a freaking meme on the political right at this point. He was such a happy little boy. He was 25, honey. She said about her grandson, he was so full of life, except he was suicidal, which means he wasn't at that moment. Neil said her son was particularly good at math and science, and he wanted to be a doctor. But he was 25, and he wasn't a doctor. And he wasn't in med school. I'm in my 40s. I have friends who are doctors. They went to medical school. They went to medical school right after going to college. If you want to be a doctor, you kind of have a plan to go to a doctor. By 25, you're probably on the way there. Are there people who start med school later? Sure. Was this guy one of them? It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like he was suicidal and he was working at Costco or Sam's Club. Nothing against Costco or Sam's Club. I love going to big stores like that. They're helpful for me. I buy in bulk. After high school, the plan was for him to get work at Sam's Club and take a gap year before heading off to college. Nothing wrong with making money and not getting into debt. But starting in his 20s, he began to struggle with his mental health, so he was never going to be a freaking doctor. This is a effing meme. The meme is they would have been doctors if they weren't the person who pulled a gun on a cop. It's like, okay. Well, at what point do we stop this stuff? I'm only reading it to you because I want to tell you that we don't punch on the left all the time. When I look at this garbage and I see what the left is putting out from like the NPR sources, it's the same as when Biden was in. It's the same silliness. They're pointing out silly problems. They're saying that his mental health worsened. His dad died. So he was never going to be a doctor is what you're saying, but you said he was going to be a doctor. He wanted to be a doctor, but he wasn't going to be a doctor. And he also started to drink because his dad died. All these things sound super rough. Oh, here's the real problem. It's probably Republicans' fault. I just realized this. According to his mother, it was difficult for him to get help because he didn't have health insurance. So Mean people didn't give him health insurance. Someone didn't give him health insurance because he didn't have any money. He didn't have any money because he wasn't working at Sam's Club, and he was going to be a doctor, but then he got sad and he didn't make enough money, and then bad things happened, and so he wasn't going to be a doctor. Anyway, and then 3 HSI agents came in, and he literally fit the scenario of the guy who was suicidal with a gun and a knife, and he decided not to put it down, and so someone tagged him and put him down, and it's really sad. There was not a mean bone in his body, the grandma says. Perhaps. Do you know who didn't know anything about him? Didn't know about his doctoral aspirations? Didn't know about his job? Didn't know about the work he would have done after he got out of high school, as he's 25 and not in medical school and doesn't even sound like he went to college even? Like, do you know who didn't know any about that? The guys you called when you said there's a child who is 25 in a room with a handgun and a knife, and they rolled in and they just did the thing that they're going to do, which is that they're going to make sure they do is that they go home. They're trained to make sure that other people are safe. I'm very sorry. It's really sad and awful, and at the same time, it's inevitable. Let's do another story here. This is coming from ABC News. This just happened in Maine. This took place on Monday, took yesterday. A man was killed in an ICE-involved shooting in Maine. Wasn't the intended target of the operation, so says an official. It took place in, is it Biddeford? I think it's Biddeford, Biddeford. One of the members of our chat said it was only 15 minutes away from them. So we are far and wide. I think I actually have video of this going on. So maybe I'll throw this on the screen as we're working. It looks like they were working CPR. They were doing the best they could to resuscitate. It's always a weird instinct to me that after you shoot someone to death, then you turn around and you like try to make sure that they survive. But this is what the video footage looks like. Turn down the birds in the background. You can see there's a couple of officers wearing HSI vests. It says police, federal agent. Got paramedics on scene. They're looking to, what are they doing? I'm trying to see what to do. Maybe putting a mask on there. So they're trying to do some bag valve mask. It's sad. It's a bummer. Federal immigration authorities were involved in a fatal shooting in Biddeford, Maine on Monday, according to local elected leaders and multiple sources. Senator Angus King, Independent Maine, said he was briefed about the incident by Secretary of Homeland Security Mark Wayne Mullen. I would not want that briefing. Would you guys want a brief from Mark Wayne Mullen about something that he wasn't at, where he was out there trying to explain what happened? I could do without that. He said he was informed that the immigration and customs enforcement agents were involved in a deadly shooting. Sounds useful. King said the man was fatally shot after federal agents tried to stop the vehicle that he was driving. Guys, you can see the people on the screen right now. I think that's worth noting. They're in blue jeans. They're in gray t-shirts. They are wearing OD green body armor with placards that say police on them. They don't look like people who are pretending to be cops. They have, duty belts, and they've got guns on holsters. They've got handcuffs and med kits and all this kind of stuff. All right. The man was stopped, or didn't stop, and so they shot him. He was in the vehicle. He pulled out in the vehicle, and the term the secretary used was weaponize the vehicle. I've actually seen this term used multiple times. I'm highlighting on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the article here just so you guys can see it. There's the scene as you see it. He was in the vehicle. He pulled out, and the term the secretary used was weaponize the vehicle and was shot by an ICE agent. Weaponizing the vehicle means you use the vehicle as a weapon. And that means that you are going towards them. It's the same exact problem that happened with Renee Good. She drove forward. A reasonable person in that space would believe that it was a threat. A reasonable person would believe that a vehicle coming towards you while the engine is revved with no ability to guess which way the wheels are going or what the intention of the person behind there is, because you're not having a conversation. You're looking through a piece of glass. You're seeing the steel of a hood and a 1,800 to 5,000 pound vehicle moving towards you that is a potentially fatal weapon. It's a lethal weapon. Weaponize the vehicle. They're using specific terms. So be it. Again, it could be the wrong guy, and the person could still find themselves doing something dangerous. Just like if you pick up a gun and somebody gives you commands not to, if they're clearly marked as law enforcement, you know what's going on here, then maybe you get shot. It's a bummer. It's not great, but it does happen. It's reminding people about this story, which is the Renee Good situation. So there's all kinds of other stories on there. I'll read another one in just a second here. Body cameras were not on the agents, so we don't have evidence of what happened in this case. State and local officials, of course, are attending to that. The FBI does the shooting investigation because they are the lead agency for federal shooting investigations. The Maine Attorney General said that they confirmed there was an ICE operation. It was targeting a man related to the final order of removal from the country. Attorney General's office said the suspect attempted to flee in the vehicle in the direction of the officers and was fatally shot. The male subject is not being named until positive identification is made and the family members are notified. They haven't said who was shot. The Governor of Maine said, I know situations like this are alarming and frightening. The Maine State Police are at the scene supporting and working cooperatively with the Attorney General's office, Maine's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and federal officials to determine the facts that occurred this morning. At least they're not jumping to conclusions on it. That seems good. People, of course, are upset about it. They issued a joint statement in this Immigrants' Rights Coalition, the Maine Immigrants' Rights Coalition, and Presente. They're two different organizations that said the individual who was killed was a 26-year-old Colombian man. They claimed he was authorized to work in the United States and he had a social security number. So that means he might have just made a very poor decision. Kind of like the young man who got killed by the federal agents in Memphis. It's a thing. And when people are properly marked, what are you going to do about it? Another story real quick here. The Fed's turning over evidence in Renee Good and Alex Priddy. This is the original thing where this story got kicked off. If you guys recall, this goes back to the beginning of the year, so going back 6 months ago. Federal prosecutors are now turning over evidence, key evidence long sought by Minnesota's investigators in their ongoing probe in the fatal shootings of Renee Good and Alex Priddy during the pitched protests against the immigration enforcement crackdowns that took place earlier this year. The state prosecutors announced they've gotten evidence. The problem with this story, and we covered it at length at the time, is that this is a federal shooting and it's a federal jurisdiction and they were doing federal scope of duty. So unless these people were outside the scope of the duty they were involved in, then these shootings have no state charges that they can bring. They might try, but at least this administration seems to be backing them up. And between the two of them, it looked like the Renee Good shooting was probably a justifiable shoot. And it's possible that the Alex Priddy shoot will also be justifiable, even if it was not good morally. And I guarantee you that people aren't feeling great about it. But he showed up with a firearm. Somebody looks like fired off a shot, maybe disarmed him. If you guys recall the story, seemed like maybe someone had a finger in a trigger well, or maybe it was a SIG for all we know. And the gun did fire, which usually means finger and trigger well, and maybe improperly disarmed, and that caused other guys to go and shoot what they believed was the source of the firearm. All that stuff, like, it's sad for both of these people. It's sad that both of them are dead. It really is. And I guarantee you that the agents who did the shooting probably don't feel great about it. They were the ones that were there. This has been hounding them. This is probably weighing on them. At the very minimum, it's like a career problem. And then also taking a human life tends to be pretty heavy. So it's not like these people are like high-fiving and having a party afterwards. And yet, there are ways that you can kind of avoid. Somehow, George Hill and I were talking about this while we were in Vegas. I had an instructor at the FBI Academy, and he was this fat, like, alcoholic Marine guy with these, like, sausagey fingers. He was shorter than me. He had these dumpy little hands that were, like, all swollen like a drinker, and he would get out in front of all of us. He would always put his hands on the women awkwardly, and I think he ended up having, like, sexual harassment complaints against him. And he would go, 30 years a Marine, undefeated in gunfights, And that was, like, his big deal. He would always tell that, and it always seemed really dumb to me. All of you, if you're listening to me, you are currently undefeated in gunfights, because defeat in a gunfight means that you end up on the wall next to Renee Good and Alex Priddy. Undefeated in gunfights means you are still alive. The end. That's it. So we're all undefeated in gunfights. And if you want to remain undefeated in gunfights, and somehow I've managed to do it carrying a gun around law enforcement while I was in law enforcement, but I was in plain clothes when I was not in law enforcement before and after, and still having interactions, plenty of them, with law enforcement officers who had the legal ability and had the authorization to administer deadly force when necessary. I've somehow managed to survive. And so have all of you as you listen. Some of you carry guns, some of you don't. There are ways to do this and come out safe. That doesn't mean somebody can't make a mistake. But if you turn your vehicle towards somebody and gun the engine and you get shot through the windshield, which, by the way, as I told you, the advantage goes to the person outside the vehicle. When you're sitting outside the vehicle shooting into a vehicle, you've got the advantage. The rounds go right to the driver, and they tend to be fatal more often than not in a way that is, like, kind of unsettling. So there you have it. If you don't want to get shot, don't do things that get you shot. Don't call the police when somebody has a handgun if you think you can negotiate them out of it. Don't think that a stranger is going to come in and treat your baby and know that they wanted to be a doctor. They don't. Don't assume that somebody else is going to go out there and do, like, protection for you when there's no reason to believe that they will. There just isn't. I want to do a couple things on the Charlie Kirk killing and the Charlie Kirk preliminary hearing that went on the other day. And maybe I'll get Viva to come pop on here and give me what he thinks is going on, because I don't follow this stuff nearly as much. The reason why is, for me, it's a local case. And it continues to be a local case. But there are some really obvious propaganda operations being done, and they're being done by people who are associated with or affiliated with Turning Point USA and the Erica Kirk crew and some of this stuff. There's also some misinformation about what's going on like happened last week in the preliminary hearing. So I do want to hone in on one of them. And I want to call out CanCon, who's with Badlands Media or does Badlands stuff. I think he also writes for Gateway Pundit. And he does a fantastic job. Brian did a really, really good video the other day, breakdown, that I thought was incredibly fair. It was very accurate. And I think he nailed the important information about what was shown and what was not shown. So I've got a couple of clips that I think indicate a sort of a deception operation that's happening about what people are saying is out there and what's not out there. Before we do any of those things, if I can remind you guys to give us a like over on, this is YouTube. If you guys have never been to our YouTube page, this is what it looks like. It's very nice, I think. This is the ongoing featured is Lies Covered Up in Murder. This was my last sit down with Steve Baker. So that is the featured show of the channel. And if you guys have not seen our Rumble channel and you want to go and find us over there, you can do that. We went ahead and featured the Dies Suddenly Lindsey Graham from yesterday, just kind of bringing the channel back. There's some fun stuff on there, including all the ones that look like this with the banner that we did while we were in Las Vegas. You'll see we did a couple interviews. Somebody asked if Spike Cohen was there in the chat earlier. We had my friend... This is my friend Stephanie. She actually interviewed Spike Cohen. So there's his interview with her is up here on the channel as well. And I think it's over on YouTube. So if you guys want to go see an interview with Spike Cohen, who I'm going to see if I can get him on here. He seemed like an interesting guy. I didn't know much about him. So when I heard him, I was like, oh, I like that guy. I like what he's about. He also administered a panel where I watched him kind of like button his mouth. And the panel was a bunch of libertarians talking about libertarian things, which is kind of like people, it's okay. Libertarians are like grown up punk rockers. Are they not? Like, they're the same people that would argue about how punk rock something is. Libertarians are always arguing whether or not it's libertarian enough. And I feel like Spike Cohen seemed to have the right answer, which is that libertarian politics also has to have some sort of value that you add. And the values that he's espoused are Christianity. So anyway, Spike was speaking my language when I was listening, and he didn't inject it on some of the guys that were in there. Matt Kibbe, there was another guy named Chris Roofer. This panel was kind of interesting because they seemed to have, like, they were almost there with the why question of why libertarianism makes sense. The thing that they missed out on was the why also has to have an underpinning morality. And they didn't have that. All right, let's do Charlie Kirk stuff. So let me start with this, because I think this is something that was very weird. This is a Turning Point video, and it was put out by Jack Posobiec. When you watch this, I want you to understand that he's acting, and the things he's saying appear to be very false. And he's unapologetic about it. I'm going to show you because he doubles down on it on Real America's Voice as well. Jack Posobiec, right outside the courtroom last week in the Charlie Kirk assassin, the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing.
It was zoomed in from the surveillance video off campus, and specifically the part of, the Losi Center, the roof, and you see everything. You see everything. He climbs over, he assembles the gun, he runs over to the edge, gets down in a prone position, and you see the time. And we all know what time. And it was like so slow, just watching those seconds, click, click, click. And then you see him take the shot, and he takes the shot, and then immediately runs. And we've seen that video already, but I knew we were going to watch that, but I wasn't prepared to see this side of what happened because we've never seen it before. We saw the other end of the shot, obviously, but this was a whole other level of just evil, and I got very...
He got very something. He's acting, and I don't know why he's acting. I don't know what the motivation for this is. I don't want to impugn someone's motives. I think that's probably the right answer, is that we don't know what was going on there, but he went on the Charlie Kirk show, which, by the way, is still called the Charlie Kirk show, even though he died in September of last year and was killed in September of last year. This is also one of those guys that was running out there with the binders about Epstein and all the other kind of stuff. And like these people seem, and he's on with Bannon on a regular basis. And when I see these sort of propagandists doing propaganda, and I don't know why, it always looks like this to me, right? Like I just want to be like, I see you. I see what you're doing there. What's this lady's name? The WNBA pointing girl. Like we see you. We see that you're lying. I don't know why you're lying. I'm not going to impugn your motives. Maybe you're so emotional about it, but I know you're fake, and I can tell. Here's another version of the same exact fake thing, and then we're going to debunk that because it's clearly garbage. It's clearly an emotional plea that is acting.
Look, guys, I'm not going to mince words. All right, I'm going to be blunt because it deserves it.
When you're going to be blunt and you're going to just say things, you don't have to give a warning unless you're doing performance, which is what this is.
And I'm just going to say what it was. You see him shooting Charlie. You see him executing Charlie. You see him take the shot. And so you've seen the video, and Blake, I know you were there, man. And it was like watching Charlie die all over again, seeing this video. It's the most damning thing I've seen all week for Tyler Robinson. With the zoom in, it just changes everything. It's like watching a completely different video, because the one that zoomed out, you can't even see anything. This one, he walks up. It's just like the officer said earlier in the, I guess it was day one, that he walks up over the guardrail, goes down, and you could see him kind of working on something, and it's, I believe that's when he was assembling the rifle. He then stands up. He runs very quickly across the.
We see you. We see you lying. What do you mean you believe that's when he was assembling the rifle? Was he assembling it or not? You said you saw him do it. Now you got this little moment where you're like, oh, like he was assembling. By the way, guys, I have the video that they showed in the courtroom. I have a screen capture of that video, and I'll play it for you in a second here, and there's no audio with it. It's the same freaking video that we've all seen already. Okay. So he's lying. He's freaking lying right there. And I don't know what the purpose of this is, but it is gross. There's no other way around it. It's nasty. This woman is going to debunk this in real time. And she was sitting in the courtroom as well. And her name is Brandy Siciliano, I believe. And she's on Baron Coleman's podcast, which I don't watch, but I did take this clip. And I think it's relevant when somebody who's sitting in the courtroom and says something. And I've seen, like I said, I saw CanCon do it. I see her saying the same thing. This is pretty clearly what actually happened. And then I'll show you the video too. And then you guys look, it's like they didn't have it. They don't have the video. By the way, the prosecutors were asked, do you have a video of him actually executing the shot? And the answer is no.
Real quickly, the video we just watched, you just saw the video. How fundamentally different, how much zooming, how much cropping, how different was the video you saw in court from what we just watched?
And for the awareness, this is the same exact video that I've been on Alex Jones right after Charlie Kirk was shot. We talked about it. We went through it. I do believe it shows a figure with a rifle that's probably wrapped up in a towel, running across a roof and then jumping down. All that. That's the video they showed. It's a freaking video. I'll show you in a second.
So I would say we're not 100% positive if it's that same exact camera. It might be another camera that's like maybe 20 feet away. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
From my perspective, I think it's the same camera, and it slightly zooms in.
The guy testified it was the same camera. That's what I just played.
Oh, okay. Then it is.
Yeah. No distinction other than circles and a little zoom. So how much did they zoom in?
Barely at all.
I would guess 20 to 30%.
Okay.
Like you cannot make out who it is. It's just a little black figure. We've talked to other people that were the other 14 people in line just to get their perspectives as well. And one of them jokingly said, like, it could have been a cow on the roof. That's how far away it was. Like, you literally cannot definitively say that it's Tyler Robinson. You cannot make out who it is at all.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
That's actually not that hard to hear. Okay. It's only hard when you compare it to people like Poso, who has a very large following and people listen to and think that he's saying the truth. And he's selling a pretty convincing, look at this face. Listen to him.
It was zoomed in from the surveillance video off campus, and specifically the part of, the Losi Center, the roof, and you see everything.
What do you mean?
You see everything.
What does that mean?
He climbs over.
Okay.
He assembles the gun.
You said sort of.
He runs over to the edge.
Got it.
Gets down in a prone position.
Oops.
And you see the time. And we all know.
He goes multiple times. I've watched every interview he's done with this from different, different clips. And it seems very clear that he wants to focus in on the time because he knows the time when Charlie Kirk was shot, that's a time that everyone understands. Like there was, there was a clock on there. I don't know what time it was. I guess he does because it's like really relevant. That was his friend. Fine. I get it. He knows the time when he was shot. And he was like, you see the time. He's being freaking deceptive. And I think he knows it because he also would have seen this.
Is there any footage of the alleged shooting?
There is not, Judge.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. Ms. Nestor, given that additional information and anything further from defense?
No, but I think I'd like to be crystal clear. You asked if there's any portion of this video that captures, and I believe you asked of the actual shooting. There's no video of that. There is video, however, and you've heard testimony related to this, where the shooter goes to the top of the Losi building, goes out to the edge of the building, low crawls, and then leaves after what we assume is the shot being fired. That's as close as it gets.
And the court also recognizes Utah Rule of Evidence 1102 as that is the foundation that's being laid for the admission of this exhibit. Having taken in consideration all factors, the court rules that Exhibit 12.4 is admitted into evidence and shall be played in the courtroom and may be broadcast by the media. And we can proceed.
Okay. So that's the cut from there. So what do they say? They say they believe they show him cutting under the rail, crawling out, disappearing, and then crawling back. Now we'll show you what that video footage looks like, and it's not that good. By the way, I still think that Tyler Robinson, until proven otherwise, is most likely the right guy. I think they got the right guy. I think there's a bigger story there, and I think Alex Jones has honed in on it, and so have I, and I think Joe Kent is saying the same thing. They were people who seemed to have advanced knowledge of what was going on. That's one part of it. The second part of it is that it does seem like there could have been people involved online, which may not be people at all, which could be either nation state actors or individuals that were trying to push some agenda, or it could have been bots or a bunch of other things that are going on that were not properly identified. And we talked about that at the time. So the story has always been that I think there's more to the story and that it was shut down. That doesn't mean this guy wasn't the shooter. I don't think it's a difficult shot. I don't think shooting 130 yards with a rifle is hard. I think that the rifle position on the scope makes sense based on dropping off a roof, which looked really, really gnarly to drop. But if you have enough adrenaline, you could do stuff. The roommate could have been involved. There's a bunch of other stuff. It's not that interesting to me at the end of the day. It really is not. Because I don't need there to be a governmental conspiracy. Here's the difference between that and Brian Cole Jr. And some of you guys are like, going to be very frustrated with me saying this. The difference between what went on in the pipe bomber case and what went on with Tyler Robinson / Charlie Kirk and whatever's there. The major difference is, number one, if this was a legit set up a patsy, why is that person alive? We've seen what these assassination with a rifle attempts look like. If you guys want an example, look at Lee Harvey Oswald. Look at the Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby dies. He's got cancer. He goes in and solves some problem. Why? You close up, you tie off your ends. That's part one. The second reason why I don't need to believe it is the major difference between what people always bring me up. They're like, you're questioning the government narrative on the pipe bomber, but you don't question the government narrative regarding what happened in Utah. Yeah, because there was a story that we all understood based on looking at the evidence that was available for 5+ years. 5 years we knew that somebody who was deeply involved in the government, who wanted a specific outcome, who likely was involved in some sort of a plan B or some sort of an operation that forwarded the government narrative on January 6th, did something Then Steve Baker, my friend, identified someone that perfectly fit that narrative and was like, this is a government person. This is a government person doing something that would benefit the government. And this person also has gotten some illogical movements career-wise that do not happen for people in that position that are also deeply within sort of the dangerous part of the government. And the minute he named that person, they named an autistic black person who had no ability to even execute the plan. And everyone goes like, what the F? In the case of Tyler Robinson, the ideology lines up fine. The rifle appears to be his. I'm happy to find out that I'm wrong. But at the end of the day, until proven otherwise, and I understand, like, this is in the court of law, they're going to start with the assumption of innocence. I think that's totally fine. If you guys want to believe he's innocent until proven guilty, that's fine too. I just look and I say, the stuff that has been presented does not tell me that he's the wrong guy or the government is doing some sort of operation. And you guys are going to disagree with me on that because you've been primed to think that the government is doing all kinds of things to lie to you. And I'm going to say, there you are. You're on the windshield right there with my buddy Ryan Matta. I think you're wrong. But we don't have to agree on everything. And I'm not telling you're a bad person because we don't agree. I'm just saying that I think that the evidence there makes sense. I know people inside that office that are really decent people that would speak out if something was being done wrong, and they have. And they haven't done it about this. They don't have any sort of questions the way that you guys do. Unfortunately, we regularly run into questions like this because our government has proven that they're not trustworthy. And again, what we heard is you got government type actors or people that seem friendly to the government. I'd say Poso is pretty government adjacent right now. He's buddies with people that are in the government, and the stuff he's doing is problematic. He's freaking lying, and I don't know why. And I don't know what the upside to that narrative is.
Where would he be located?
Here's the video.
Quadrants?
And this is
in the top right, and the individual can be seen.
The video that you're seeing right now is the video from the roof that was in fact shown. This is the video that Poso saw. This is a cell phone capture from in the courtroom that they probably weren't supposed to do. So we're going to watch it. There's some talking over. This is how you know it's in the courtroom. Are you ready?
Moving under the notations that are on the video.
Okay.
Get that just right. So there's a little black spot.
And what time is this?
It's just afternoon, about 12:15.
On what day?
On September 10th, 2025.
Okay. What just happened, or what did we just see happen?
The individual actually kind of rolls over the railing onto the roof of the Lucy building.
Which doesn't look like a cow. It looks like a vertical line is going from left to right on the screen.
And again, in the top left corner, the individual is now seen running across the rooftop of the Lucy building.
Okay.
To what would be the southwest corner.
Zero identifiable features in this. None.
Crouching down and then crawling to the corner of the building.
And they're interpreting that based on other information, based on looking there. Yeah, but like you're not IDing anybody from this. This is dog shit.
Around 12:23. I think the timestamp on the video is 12:22.
It looks like maybe you see what could be legs splayed out there, but the pixels come and go because the definition is very bad.
This is the roof of the Lucy building.
Correct.
This is the exact same footage that was released, give or take. Same camera.
Yes, you can, laying prone.
Okay, so what they're claiming is, for whatever it's worth, is that what we're seeing there in about the middle, just a little bit below the midline and a little bit to the left, is that dark blot, which seems to have some light streaks coming out of it, is a body that is in a prone position. So that's going to be head up, shoulders up, belly to the ground, butt to the ground, legs splayed out. Maybe. And again, that's probably what it is because you can kind of track where the body went. The vertical body. It was obviously a moving thing, but whether that was a man or a woman or an alien, a blue, a gray, whether it was an elf, a battle dwarf, like nobody knows what the hell this stuff is. I'm just going to keep showing it. The footage even gets it moves a little bit, and it moves probably because there's wind hitting the camera.
Mr. Robinson?
We are massively zoomed in.
Do you believe this to be Mr. Robinson?
I do, yes.
And how long is he out there on the edge of the building?
Just until the reported shot was fired at 12:23 and 28. Individual then stands up and then moves across the building to the north.
Okay, now you're seeing the
it is
pixels move.
They move behind the atrium area on the rooftop.
Imagine seeing that and then saying this.
It was zoomed in from the surveillance video off campus, and specifically the part of the Losi Center, the roof, and you see everything. You see everything.
What did you see?
Climbs over. He assembles the gun. He runs over to the edge. Gets down in a prone position, and you see the time, and we all know what time, and it was like so slow, just watching those seconds.
This is such an
click,
acted piece
click,
of shit nonsense.
click, and then you see him take the shot, and he takes the shot, and then immediately runs, and we've seen that video already, but
I just throw up my hands. I don't know what you do with someone who is so clearly lying, and I don't know why, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's the way that I'm seeing. That's not credible, that information that he just shared. So that's unfortunate. And I got nothing against Pozo. I met his brother. He seemed like a nice enough guy. I think neither of them follow me on socials anymore, and I don't really care. I'm going to say that you're a young enough guy to be able to see. You watch that video. We can all see on the screen what it looks like. It probably was a little bit clearer when it wasn't a cell phone capturing a screen of that. But I'm sorry, you didn't see anything of value in there. And it's basically the same thing that we saw. It's the same exact damn thing that we saw in, a couple days later from the security cam footage from the roof. And you literally had Brandy, who was sitting in the courtroom, saying the same thing. And she's right. And again, CanCon showed he proved conclusively to me that was the video being shown, because he can actually show an angle of that camera or that screen being shown in the courtroom from context, from further out. So now I just know that people are lying. I just don't know why, and I'm not going to assign a meaning to it, but I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that what should be a straightforward case, it should be something that we can just look at and go, yeah, the system works and here's what it does. And again, what we get is more of the same, where nobody's going to be, we're in a low trust society. Our government is not trustworthy. And we got people that are basically crapping on the one people that are supposed to keep the government accountable, which is going to be the media. And the media picks teams. So all that is sad. It's an awful thing. It's awful for Charlie Kirk's family, whether you like him or not. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of the wife long before, because I just don't like pageant people, and pageant girls are weird to me. But all that said, it's like the kids lost their dad. She lost her husband. It's awful. I wish she would go home and get out of the limelight and take care of her kids. So I see all this as just sad. And, so a family lost their son, and a wife lost her husband, and kids lost their dad. So that's awful. And then we have all this weird shit going on around it. And every bit of that, it's a spectacle where people are making money on it. There's a lot of money to be made in talking about the story, which is why I don't do it very much, because I find it very off-putting and distasteful. We are going to play a palate cleanse about that, because there's plenty of people that are making jokes. I think if we don't laugh, then we're probably going to be screwed anyway. So I will just tell you that. I will make light of everything, especially the most serious things. And I do want to say thanks to the sponsors and the audience. For those of you that are part of our locals community, that you're part of our channel membership over on YouTube, you guys make this possible. You let me say whatever I say, and then you listen to it, and you get to make up your own mind. I won't tell you what to think. I'll tell you what I think, and I'll tell you why I think it's convincing. If you think otherwise, you're not my enemy. Support our sponsors. You guys can scan the QR code you see on the screen right now if you want to go check them out. I've got a new one coming in pretty soon. We're going to see. But there's a company that sent me some suppressors, and I'm going to go try them out. They're brand new. They're a brand new company doing some new stuff in a new way. I met them at SHOT Show in January, and I'm pretty excited because they've got some very interesting designs. So I got a couple of those. I picked them up yesterday. We're going to go do some shooting on that. So you'll be able to follow us over at the Tackleberry Project whenever that's going on. Yes, I'm working on it. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm doing my best, which is not the greatest. I'm trying to get a freaking lawsuit response written right now by myself, which is not what I'm best at. So let's go and do a palate cleanse. We'll do something to smile and laugh about all of it. This is a lighthearted take on a bunch of the weird stuff. And I will add all of the articles that I referenced today in today's comments over on YouTube and Rumble. So make sure you're following one of those two channels. And then wherever you listen, somewhere else, if you listen to the audio, then by all means, no big deal. I think Spotify is still the best at KyleSerafinShow.com. All right, let's do something to make us laugh. Pointing at you, Poso. We see you. All right, let's do this one. Here we go. This is what this is where we've all ended up now that everyone's got an opinion about what happened to Charlie Kirk.
We all love Charlie. He was projected to run for president, but then one day he decides to stop taking the money and puts on the St. Michael pendant and sends a text saying he had no choice but to lead the pro-Israel cause.
So we had to give him the old Shabbat Shalom.
Headquarters sent us the location, and we pulled it up on the satellite. We couldn't believe it at first. I was like,
that quad looks like a menorah.
We established a pattern of putting the mic on the inside of his shirt, and thankfully he never got suspicious of how we positioned it. All it was a small vector of concentrated hot gas, like a blank fired out of a handgun.
Similar to how John Hexum died.
We waited for our asset to ask him a question about shootings and got him right after his first answer. We made sure there was no ambulance on standby, and our guys were quick to secure his necklace.
So we could remove any residue.
Our guy on the roof got away clean, even after getting caught on film before and after. But then we're giving the Patsy rifle into this shitty old Mauser. I was like, this thing is too big for our guy's bag, and the scope isn't even mounted correctly. So my boss says,
We'll just say you used a screwdriver to take it apart.
Unfortunately, they rushed to publish photos of the rifle and wrote phrases on some of the casings that almost screwed up the entire operation. I was like,
Who let a boomer write the memes?
Then all we had to do was excavate the crime scene, say we got the kid in 33 hours, and send some text to the lover in the Patsy's Discord server. Unfortunately, we used the same boomer to write it all, and I was like,
No one's gonna believe a kid wrote this shit.
Then people started to catch on to the mic, so we had to figure out how to keep the company who made it quiet.
So we blew up the whole building along with the entire staff.
Some of you guys probably think that's legitimate history. And maybe some of that's true, and maybe it's not. We're in such a low trust side that nobody knows. All right. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys being here. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless all of you. And I'll see you guys on the other side on this upcoming Wednesday. It's been a weird week so far. I don't think it's going to get any less weird.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.